Chapter 121, John Wick said calmly, "Don't worry. My target isn't you. I don't do things outside my mission. As long as you cooperate, I won't waste my bullets." Pat Gates blurted, "Okay, no problem. We promise to cooperate, sir. We'll do whatever you want." Ben Gates rolled his eyes and shouted, $1 million, all yours. Just don't touch that paint bucket. I can even sell the house, get a few 100,000 more. Take it all." "Shut up, Ben," Pat cried, panic in his voice. He knew the rules of the assassin world. His wife, Victoria Winslow, was an English university professor who hid a very different life. No professional assassin would abandon a mission. Anyone who did would go from hunter to hunted in an instant. John Wick didn't flinch at Ben's offer. "Eyeglasses. Tie up Mr. Ben Gates. You have 2 minutes. When the time's up, I'll shoot." He glanced at his watch. The clock started. "Move." Riley looked from John to Ben, frozen. Pat screamed, "Hurry, Riley, while this gentleman still has patience. Do you want to die?" Prompted, Riley fumbled with the ropes. "Tie him properly, eyeglasses," John warned. "No tricks, bullets don't have eyes." Riley added several more wraps of tape. Within 2 minutes, Ben was securely bound. John nodded. "Good, now turn around." Riley trembled as he obeyed. Before fear fully registered, his eyes rolled back and he went limp. John tied him up as well. Then he patted down Ben and Riley, pulling off their watches and phones. Their shoes were already missing. Seeing this, Ben's face drained of color. Of course, they had been tampered with. Watches, phones, even shoes could carry trackers or bugs. How else had someone followed him all the way to his father's house? His hands went ice cold, sweat poured down his forehead. Someone had been watching his every move. This was no random robbery. It was a carefully planned operation. Maybe there were people waiting at his mother's house, or someone had been tailing him since Ian approached him 2 years ago. Who could it be? William? Ian? Or another group that had been monitoring him for a long time? Ben blurted the only name that came to mind. William Devonshire. John looked at him without expression. Ben watched that blank face, hungry for any sign. John showed none. Ben's heart sank. William might not be involved after all. Thinking it through, Ben dismissed Ian too. Ian wouldn't hire expensive assassins when he could send his own people. Whoever had been watching him clearly had deep resources and patience. John placed the watches and phones into a radiation-proof vacuum evidence bag and sealed it. "Thank you for your cooperation. I hope we never meet again. One last word of advice. Don't tell the Secret Service anything you shouldn't. We're not alone. Don't make us come back for you. And I'm sorry about this." Then he turned and walked away from the back door. This John Wick, leaner, harder, wasn't the man he'd later become after meeting his wife. He showed no mercy. He had deliberately exposed a listening device in front of the Gates men to steer their attention and convince them he wasn't alone. That belief would keep them from provoking whoever had been watching. If William had really ordered Ben spared to be a scapegoat, John understood the calculus. But if not, he wouldn't have hesitated to put bullets into all three. Either way, he removed the immediate threat, sealed the evidence, and left. After disabling the surveillance vehicle, John changed cars several times, slipping through safe houses in small towns before heading toward New York. He drove with the careful pleasure of a man who had completed his work. Half an hour later, the Secret Service was already speeding toward Pittsburgh, but it took them over an hour to arrive. When they reached Pat Gates' house, a dozen agents moved in with tactical precision. Both front and back doors were breached simultaneously. Inside the living room were 3 bound figures: Ben Gates, Pat Gates, and Riley. One agent rushed to Ben, ripped the tape from his mouth, and demanded, "What happened here? Where is the Declaration of Independence?" Once the scene was secure, William and a few others from the church stepped into the house. William had felt somehow that John Wick had succeeded. The sense gave him a quiet relief. He composed himself and, seeing the bound men, put on an expression of shocked surprise. Sedes, who had been hoping to corner William and read his reaction, inwardly cursed his luck. Someone had beaten them to it and stolen the declaration. With Ben Gates, the mastermind of the theft, captured, Sedes finally had something to take to his superiors. He ordered his team to untie the prisoners and barked, "What happened? Who tied you up? Where is the Declaration of Independence?" Ben kept his eyes locked on William, his face ashen. The agents instinctively put hands on their holsters. William felt a chill at that look. Ben, why are you staring at me? You don't think this has anything to do with me, do you? He asked aloud. He turned to Church, who had followed him in. Church, you have to testify for me. I had no time or opportunity to transmit messages. Besides, how would I know Ben and Riley would come here? Church nodded to Sedes. William had no time or opportunity to send any messages just now. As for whether he planned this in advance, I don't know. Don't make that kind of accusation without proof. William snapped. If I'd hired someone to steal the declaration, do you think Ben and the others would still be alive? If anything, I'd have benefited from them disappearing completely. Someone's trying to frame me. Remember, Abigail and I are close. I can inspect the declaration openly in the archives if I make a donation. Why would I risk stealing it and becoming the target of your agents? Everyone considered his point. It was true that, given William's status, he had no obvious motive to steal it clandestinely. More importantly, whoever had tied up the three of them hadn't silenced them or taken them away. They'd been left for the Secret Service. That suggested the other party had a purpose beyond simply removing witnesses. Sedes turned to Riley. How long ago did the robber leave? 20-30 minutes, maybe, Riley stammered. Not long. Pull the surrounding surveillance, Sedes ordered Lily. I want to know where that robber went, now. On it, sir, Lily said as she worked her phone. Sedes glared at Riley. Tell me everything you know, Riley, or you'll be rotting in jail. Terrified, Riley recounted the whole sequence. Ben finally spoke too, driven by the same need to know who had been watching him. He described how he'd tried to test his tale and his suspicion that whoever had been watching had been doing so for a long time, perhaps since Ian's approach 2 years earlier. Suddenly, Lily hurried back, whispering to Sedes, There's nothing, no useful footage. Sedes froze. How is that possible? The opponents experienced in counter-surveillance, Lily said. We found a burnt-out pickup with a stack of listening devices inside, but there are no hard drives. Whatever was recording was taken away. All leads are dead. Sedes's face darkened. Tracking a team of experienced operatives who had planned this in advance would be brutal work. The Secret Service already believed there was something more to the declaration. Otherwise, so many people wouldn't have risked so much for it. If Sedes couldn't recover the document in 3 days, he'd be the scapegoat. He felt the pressure keenly. Handcuff Ben Gates and Riley, he ordered. We're going back to Washington. They moved to take the prisoners away, the house still smelling faintly of panic and the ghosts of what had just happened. Chapter 122. After his men cuffed Ben Gates and Riley, Sedes ground his teeth and spat at Ben. Ben Gates, you'll rot in jail, you bastard. To keep the agents with him from noticing anything, William pretended to be angry with them. He kept his eyes shut on the ride back to Washington, D.C., ignoring their attempts at conversation. 2 hours later, back in D.C., Sedes still had no evidence to detain William. Watching William walk into the hotel, Sedes scowled and ordered his subordinates, Keep an eye on William Devlin 24 hours a day. I want to know his every move. Even without proof, he's highly suspicious. Understood, one agent said, and several men followed William into the hotel. Sedes covered his face with his palm and asked the agent beside him, What do you make of this? The agent hesitated, then said, Everything we've gathered points away from William, but I have a bad feeling. This could all be tied to him. Sedes, you've never handled international affairs, so you might not know him, but I do. Don't let his age fool you. William is ruthless when it comes to his goals. He spent so much time and effort hunting this treasure, yet he showed no concern for what happened to the Declaration of Independence afterward. That's odd, almost as if he's deliberately trying to clear himself. Agent Lily listened and asked, But our intel indicates William never intended to steal the Declaration. Dr. Abigail confirmed his statement on that. That's why I'm suspicious, the agent replied. Even if William wouldn't act himself for fear of exposure, he'd be happy if someone else stole it. If you were William, would you do it yourself or hire someone? That would mean William has been tailing Ben Gates and his crew for 2 years, another agent said. 2 years ago, William Devlin was only 18, a high school student with no money. How would that work? Sedes frowned. What if William only started watching Ben Gates in the last few days? They all thought it over and shook their heads. Set aside. We all know William is suspicious, but we have no evidence. Everything requires proof. Arresting a celebrity like William Devlin without cause will make the media tear us apart. If he pushes back and it becomes an international incident, we'll be in trouble with the higher-ups and with England. With no better option, they returned to the Secret Service office. It was past 1 a.m. Weary agents watched the recovered surveillance footage with stale coffee in hand. Back at the hotel, William felt a gnawing unease, intuition warning him of danger. He replayed the day's events in his head for over an hour, but couldn't identify the flaw. Frustrated, he took a large gulp of whiskey and stared at the street below. Then, watching the cars parked outside the archives, it struck him. That truck. The vehicle parked outside the archive had a full set of listening devices and receivers. If it were discovered, he'd look guilty. If it belonged to a third party, it wouldn't have remained parked there. It would have left long ago. He set the bottle down and smiled inwardly. He still had an advantage. Perhaps a bad situation could be turned to his favor. He moved to the bathroom, scanned it mentally, and found no surveillance. He didn't open a portal directly into the small truck. He couldn't be sure the Secret Service hadn't anticipated such a loophole and set an ambush around it. At the Secret Service office, the agent watching the video suddenly exclaimed, "Got it! Wireless bugs need a receiver to extend their range. Whoever was watching Ben Gates must have had a listening receiver. Lily, pull up the surveillance and see if any car followed Ben Gates to Pittsburgh. Seededs, get a team to check around the archives for suspicious vehicles or recent residents. Hurry, let's hope the evidence hasn't been tampered with." Seededs sprang to his feet. "Exactly. If we find a suspicious vehicle or resident, we might find fingerprints. Let's go." William decided to place a teleportation point in the National Archives bathroom. He had scanned it the night before and found it clear, and the bathroom's use in the middle of the night was unlikely. Opening a portal, he stepped into that bathroom. As expected, few guards were present. Avoiding cameras, he slipped out through the annex, climbed the wall, and crept along the green belt toward the parking lot. Circling the lot, he was relieved the Secret Service hadn't found the truck yet. He unlocked the truck with a key and was about to start it when distant headlights announced approaching vehicles. Agents had found the place after all. He couldn't start the truck without being seen. Panic flared. His storage couldn't hold the entire set of listening equipment. Burn it? He rejected the idea in an instant. The priority was not to attract attention. If they didn't find anything tonight, he'd have time to resolve the problem properly. Then he spotted a drain less than a meter away. Providence. He opened the truck's right door, cast Mage Hand to lift the drain cover, and began tossing the surveillance gear into the sewer, one piece at a time. The Secret Service cars were still idling with sirens on, so the sound wouldn't carry far. He threw everything in as quickly as he could. After he finished, he put on gloves and wiped down the interior. As the agents' cars screeched to a stop and a dozen officers poured from them, William closed the truck door silently, slipped into the sewer, and used Mage Hand to replace the manhole cover. The famous tourist area had well-maintained infrastructure. He nearly stumbled on the nearly 2.5-meter drop. He steadied himself against the wall and hauled himself below, then carefully covered the manhole. Listening through his mental link, he heard the agents arrive at the lot. He gathered the scattered devices from the sewer and moved deeper into the tunnels. After 3 trips, he had hidden all the gear. Some small, broken parts he put into his dimensional storage. He finished just as the agents began checking the truck. Hidden in the shadows, William listened as flashlights swept the windshield. "David, there's a small truck here. Let's check it first. You have headquarters check the license plate and records on this vehicle." "Copy that. Agent David, over. Please check license plate C2348, red GM pickup, over. License plate normal, vehicle normal, over." They shone their lights through the cab and checked the bed. Finding nothing, one called, "Let's move on. Check the other cars." Voices faded. William's heart finally slowed. That had been close. If he'd hesitated, discovery would have been inevitable. When the agents left half an hour later, William opened a portal from the sewer and sent the listening equipment to his secret underground room in Oxford Castle. Troublesome gear out of the way, he focused on clearing suspicion completely. He took from storage the business card the cleaner had given him in Paris, opened a portal back to the National Archives bathroom, and slipped out past the cameras. He ducked into an office and used the desk phone to call the number. Catering service. Someone answered quickly. Lowering his voice, William said, "I need someone to move a red pickup truck, license plate PC2348, toward the East Coast. 2 gold coins as payment. Leave the coins and the keys on the driver's side tire." "Understood, sir. A red pickup, PC2348. Is this to distract someone? We need to confirm the situation." William took a breath and described his preference for the driver. "Prefer someone around 885 centimeters, average build." The voice replied, "Because it's a vehicle in DC and your request adds a task, the price is double. Proceed?" "Fine. Double it." Order accepted. He hung up and checked his watch. 2 a.m. If his plan worked, the Secret Service's attention would be diverted from him, giving him time to continue the search for the treasure. The thought made him giddy. The treasure was worth tens of billions in hard assets: gold bars, coins, antiques, jewelry. The idea of that fortune quickened his pulse. He went into a closed room to avoid the portal's glow being noticed, scanned for surveillance, and then opened the portal. From the sewer, he used Mage Hand to place 4 gold coins and the truck keys on the driver's side tire where the cleaner would find them. With the bait in place and the distraction arranged, William felt the first real ease he'd had all night. Chapter 123. In less than 20 minutes, William heard footsteps approaching. He watched from under the manhole cover as a figure dressed in black, wearing a hat and carrying 2 plastic buckets, moved quietly toward the small truck. The figure touched a tire then, after getting the keys and coins, opened the car door and drove off. As William had expected, a small sedan fell in behind the truck. He knew the sedan had to be Secret Service. The truck, though, it was no longer his problem. Even if the cleaner were caught, professionals who specialized in this kind of cleanup always had ways and reasons to explain themselves. Watching the cars disappear, William finally let himself relax. He slipped away through a portal and returned to the conference room of the National Archives, where he lay on the floor and waited calmly. Citizen Church, sure they had found a lead, had not felt quite so calm. Excited, they led a dozen agents east after the truck. The further they followed, the more uncertain they became. After 4 hours, the map showed they were almost at the shoreline. Still suspicious, they followed another half hour and arrived at a small pier. The driver stopped. It was already 7 in the morning. Citizen Church parked more than 200 meters away, hidden behind a greenbelt and other vehicles, hoping to catch whoever would make the rendezvous. A few minutes later, a figure in black, hat pulled low, got out of the car. The person covered their face with a hand, glanced in the direction of Cediz's team, then broke into a run for the pier. "He saw us ages ago," Cediz snapped, grabbing his radio. "Move. Don't let him get away." The agents slammed their cars into gear and sped after the figure. They had gone less than 100 meters when the small truck suddenly erupted into flames. Cediz could tell at a glance it was gasoline. His stomach dropped. They had been set up. Before they reached the pier, they saw a speedboat streaking out from the dock. Cediz flung his jacket to the ground and swore. Around him, the agents looked defeated. Only Church stood quiet, head bowed in thought. "Church, have you figured something out?" Cediz asked, clinging to a sliver of hope. Church nodded slowly. "Why would they hurry to get rid of that truck? Our people searched it. There was nothing suspicious inside. If they'd waited a few days, they could have blamed a thief or a homeless person. There's no need for this much trouble." Everyone understood immediately. The car had been nothing but bait, meant to draw the Secret Service away so someone could slip out of the archives unnoticed. Cediz's phone buzzed. He glanced. Agent Lilly. His heart sank. He put Church on speaker. "Sir, something's wrong," Lilly said, voice tight. "We've been fooled. I just checked the cameras outside the archives. After enhancement, it's blurry but clear enough. At 3:30 a.m., someone dressed entirely in black, hood up, carrying a painting tube on their back, came out of the archives and then disappeared into the parking lot." The Declaration of Independence never left the archives. They planned this very carefully. What Ben Gates took was probably a fake. What do we do, sir? Sedes and Church got it at once. The parked car in the lot had been a distraction while the real thief slipped out. Church asked quickly, "What about the internal surveillance? Didn't it catch someone?" "No," Lily said helplessly. "We rechecked everything. There's no sign. Whoever did it could have been hiding inside the archives and then slipped out after you chased the truck. If it weren't for that street camera, we'd never have known the document was still here." Sedes exploded. "Damn it, there's an inside man. Otherwise they couldn't have known the layout and timing. Lily, check everyone in the archives. Everyone is a suspect." "Understood, sir." He hung up and leaned against his car, drained. "This is a mess. With their methods, we won't recover the Declaration in 3 days. Church, do me a favor." Church had already accepted the grim reality. What they'd thought they could reach was disappearing. He nodded. "Of course, Sedes. We've been friends for 20 years. I'll help any way I can." Sedes forced a bitter smile. "I'm going to take the fall for this. If I retire in disgrace, someone might even target my family. I'm going to hand over all my resources to you, the undercover agents under my command. I'll arrange for my family to go into hiding in New York and then to Switzerland once things settle." Church thought for a moment and replied, "I can put a few people in safe houses for a year or two, but don't give up yet. There's still a chance." "Don't soothe me, Church." Sedes's voice was flat. "I'll fight to the end, but I need a fallback. It's almost 60 years for me. You should leave. Don't get dragged in. If you stay, they may force this on you." He folded his hands. "I'll put a few things in the old locker in the underground maintenance room at the New York train station. The password is XXX. Church nodded. He knew the locker. He'd used it before. "Understood. I'll wait for word. If the worst happens, I'll shelter your family." "Thank you. Take care. You too." Church left for New York. When Church drove off, Sedes pulled himself together and ordered his men into action. "Run the silhouette through analysis. Check if William Devonshire left his hotel last night. I want Ben Gates' interrogation report in 30 minutes. Issue warrants for Ian and his group. We'll find them within a day." Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Sedes, William was asleep in his hotel room. Earlier, he had telephoned the cleaner from the archive's phone and, carrying a painting tube he'd found there, had deliberately walked hunched into the exterior surveillance cameras. He'd wanted the Secret Service to believe that all the frantic events were cover for someone who'd been hiding in the archives and slipped out while they chased the bogus car. He was confident suspicion would soon lift from him. After that, he could move freely. Back in Washington, Sedes reviewed reports Lily had sent. The Pittsburgh police had found the bodies of Ian and 5 others, including a retired archives security guard. Piecing that together with other intelligence, Sedes formed a theory. Whoever stole the Declaration had probably been watching Ben Gates for years, maybe decades. Ian and his team might once have worked with the people behind the theft, but they'd been eliminated. If a retired guard had been bribed, there must be other moles inside the archives. Find the mole, and they might trace the mastermind. Around noon, there was a knock on William's hotel door. The butler called his name. William rubbed his eyes, opened the door, and found a haggard Sedes standing in the suite lobby. "Is something wrong, Director Sedes?" William asked, still half asleep. Sedes had checked the hallway cameras and confirmed William had not left his room since arriving. Seeing William's bleary face eased his suspicion. He'd come in person to extend an olive branch. If trouble came, maybe befriending William would help. He forced a kind, tired smile. "Good afternoon, William. I'm here to tell you officially, you're cleared. Congratulations." "Really?" William's surprise was genuine. He hadn't expected to be released so quickly. "You caught the killer that fast? Well, congratulations, Director Sedes." He smiled, but the warmth was fake, and Sedes felt the disdain in his eyes. It stung. Sedes's face darkened. "We've confirmed you're no longer a suspect. I can't discuss the details. I've got other things to handle. Good luck, William." "Oh, you're leaving already?" William said, offering a hand. "Thank you for coming in person, Director. Goodbye." They shook hands. William watched Sedes and his team hurry away while Washington's investigation stretched outward and inward at once. chasing shadows and seeking the mole that had walked out of the archives carrying a painting tube into the night. Back in his bedroom, William closed the door, pumped his fist, and jumped with excitement. He could finally escape the whirlpool closing in on him. His contingency plans had worked perfectly. Now the Secret Service would be chasing the man who had impersonated John Wick and the thief from last night. With the real Declaration of Independence in his possession, everyone else's leads to the treasure were cut off. Only William knew where it truly was. It was a pity that Abigail was under investigation. This wasn't a good time for them to meet. The realization left William with no one to celebrate with. He took out the phone he had used to message Winston, opened it, and saw Winston's message. John Wick had returned to the Continental to complete his mission and asked when William could come to hand over the assignment and finalize the contract. Since he couldn't see Abigail, there was no point staying in Washington. William decided to return to New York. He told the suite butler to book a private jet. At 4 p.m, he stepped off the jet and into the car Charon, the Continental's lobby manager, had sent to pick him up. Once inside, William asked, "Charon, is Winston at the hotel?" Charon nodded. "Yes, Mr. Devonshire. Mr. Winston has been at the hotel the whole time. He's been waiting for you." "All right, let's go." The car didn't stop at the Continental's main entrance. It drove into the underground parking of the building next door. Charon led William through a coded door. After a few minutes, they reached an elevator. Charon entered a code and scanned his fingerprint, and the doors opened. "As of now," Charon said as they stepped in, "you can use this elevator to reach Mr. Winston in the future. It's a private lift that goes directly to his residence. Only Mr. Winston and I know about it. The corridor is fitted with a dozen automatic firing points. Anyone who tries to break in will be cut to pieces. You'll be able to register your fingerprint in a moment." Hearing that, William felt a thrill. It seemed Winston really considered him one of his own to reveal such a secret passage. Could the old man truly be treating him as a successor? The thought made William's suspicious nature flare up. He didn't know where that trait had come from. He'd been ordinary in his previous life. But learning that his maternal grandfather had been a long-serving Secret Service veteran and discovering the family's hidden past had changed him. Some things couldn't even be told to his mother. They stepped out of the elevator and saw Winston waiting with a broad smile. Winston greeted him with a warm hug. "Is the trouble resolved?" William grinned. "A small matter. It's taken care of." "Good. Let's finish our business first. John Wick's waiting for you. After that, you'll have a proper meal with me. I can barely remember the last time I ate with someone. I miss the old days. Henry, your grandmother, your mother, and you in London." Inside Winston's living room, Winston asked, "What would you like to drink? I heard you like whiskey. I have a 1948 Jack Daniels. Would you like some?" At the mention of a 1948 Jack Daniels, William's eyes lit up. He nodded eagerly. Winston smiled, fetched the bottle from the cellar, and poured 2 glasses. "Water or ice?" he asked. "No," William replied quickly. "Neat. It's the only way to taste it properly." He lifted the glass and took a small sip. Good. Surprisingly good. He'd grown used to Irish whiskey, but this American whiskey suited him exceptionally well. He made a mental note to try and collect some vintage Jack Daniels. They sipped and traded stories, William's awkward childhood embarrassments, and the old adventures Winston and Henry had shared. A knock sounded at the door. Karen entered and reported, "Sir, John Wick is waiting. Shall we go?" Winston chuckled. "I'll leave the rest to you. We'll have dinner afterward." "Okay. See you later, Winston." After a Spanish-style dinner and a long conversation over red wine, Winston checked his watch. It was almost 10. He handed William a painting tube that John Wick had turned in. "Are you sure this is the original?" he asked. Charon checked earlier. It seems the real one was stolen by another group. William looked at the tube, then shook his head with a smile. "I won't take it. Please dispose of it." Winston didn't look surprised. He chuckled and tossed the tube aside. "So you already know. Your intelligence is sharp. Not many people know the Secret Service in D.C. was outplayed, or..." He laughed softly. "Or perhaps the real one is actually in your hands." William only chuckled. He hadn't yet decided whether to hide the declaration himself or to deface the numbers and patterns on its back and then return it. The document was too important to the Americans. It was practically national lifeblood. If it remained unaccounted for, as a participant, he would be under constant suspicion and inevitably fall under surveillance. He sipped his wine and, feeling contemplative, asked, "Winston, have you ever heard of the Knights Templar treasure? Do you think it really exists?" Winston's expression turned playful. "You sly thing. Don't worry. Treasure isn't for me. Let me make one thing clear so you don't waste your time guessing. I'm old, and I don't have the energy to scheme over your affairs. Do you know how much money I have?" William wasn't embarrassed at being perceived as greedy. He gave a ridiculous estimate. "100 million?" Winston laughed. "Ha, my cash alone is more than 100 million. Maybe around 300 million. Add my properties, and it could be 500 or 600 million. That much." William was astonished. "Do assassins earn that much?" "You've grown fast, kid," Winston said with amusement. "When you're at the top of any pyramid, money isn't the issue. But do you know how much I spend in a day?" 10,000? William guessed. "No, 0. I haven't spent a penny in 5 or 6 years." Winston sighed. "A few years back, I even considered a test tube heir. I spent nearly 10 years and tens of millions trying. Nothing worked. The poison my enemies gave me robbed me of fertility. I can still, well, I've lost the desire. Now I spend most of the year here at the Continental. What would I spend money on? Don't you have any hobbies? If you met your end with money unspent, that would be a shame." Winston laughed. "I'm glad you're not coveting my cash. I've said all this so you won't misjudge me. I have no heirs and no need for more wealth. I won't covet the Devonshire secrets. Leave that treasure to you, if it exists. In fact, I suspect you've already found it. Isn't the secret recorded on that Da Vinci-style cylinder Henry left you?" William believed Winston mostly. Still, he didn't fully trust anyone. Not wanting the treasure didn't mean Winston wouldn't want other things. Secrets are only secrets if no one knows them. William put on an easy expression. "No, Henry only left me a coordinate. It's Barrow Point. That's where I went a few days ago. The Devonshires used to obsess over the treasure because the family was poor. Now that I'm rich, I don't need to chase a legend. Let it sleep underground as a kind of tribute to those 6 founders. After all, I'm a descendant, and our ancestors' agreements ought to be respected." He raised his glass, grinned, and gave a low shout. "Knights Templar forever." He drained his wine in one gulp. "All right, Winston. I should go back to the Upper East Side. I haven't stayed at the house I bought for a while. Maybe tonight I'll meet a beautiful woman to talk life and exercise with. Goodbye, Uncle Winston." Winston rolled his eyes but seemed relieved. Words could make things real, but silence could hide them too. "William, you are truly a Devonshire, born suspicious. Be careful. In a few days, a lot of people will be watching you. Some things don't need proof to become trouble, understand?" "I know." William understood exactly what Winston meant. If Sides didn't find the declaration in 3 days, the Americans would find someone to blame, and many eyes would fall on him. That had been the plan. Destroy the declaration as a public clue and leave no evidence that the treasure existed. If no proof turned up, the authorities wouldn't dare arrest him openly. The theft would be laid at the feet of Ben Gates and a phantom thief in black. And if they did try to arrest him without evidence, he could make a rich man's misery of them in court. $100 million could buy a lawsuit to last forever. Let them watch, if they wished. They took the private elevator down. William spotted Charon beside the waiting car. Charon opened the back door for him with quiet courtesy. "Thank you, Charon," William said as he settled in. "Take me to the Upper East Side. Do you know the house I bought?" "Yes, Mr. Devonshire. Mr. Winston has already told me. We keep backups of everything you do in New York. If you need anything, come to me. I'll serve you wholeheartedly." "Thank you." The drive took about 10 minutes to the Upper East Side. William watched the nocturnal city windows slide by, but his mind was elsewhere, on treasure, contingencies, and teleportation plans. He considered heading to the basement of Trinity Church tonight to create a teleportation point, then, when the heat died down, using a gate to move the treasure back to Castle. He smiled at the thought, plans within plans, all to stay one step ahead. Chapter 125. As the car turned onto Sex Avenue, William's eyes caught on a building with a distinctive design. He frowned. Why does that look so familiar? Where have I seen it before? Karen, what's that building under construction up ahead? He asked. That's Stark Tower, Mr. Devonshire, Karen replied. Stark? William's heart gave a jolt, though he kept his expression neutral. Tony Stark? Yes, sir. Tony Stark. I'm surprised you've heard of him even here in England. He's that arms-dealing playboy. William smiled inwardly. He hadn't known Tony Stark as a household name in England. Before he became Iron Man, Stark wasn't as internationally notorious as he would later be. Outwardly, he asked, careful to keep his tone casual, when did Tony Stark's father die? Karen thought for a moment. Probably in the early 90s. Sorry, Mr. Devonshire, we mostly pay attention to Stark Industries' new weapons. We don't keep up with the family tree. That was enough for William. The sudden brush with a celebrity from the movies had set his nerves on edge, but he was secretly relieved. This was the movie world, not the comic universe. The movie world was dangerous, but avoid the big cities, and it was manageable. He watched Stark Tower recede in the rear view and thought about practical matters. He'd have to sell his newly bought mansion in a few years. Ambrosio would probably tear into him if she knew he was thinking that. Then again, he was a very wealthy man. He doubted she'd dare show her fangs at him. Karen drove him to the private elevator in the mansion's basement. William waved him off, scanned his fingerprint and iris, and rode the elevator up. As soon as he opened the door, blasting music hit him. A group of stunning women laughed and danced in his living room. Ambrosio saw him and immediately killed the music, barreling into his arms. Darling, you're back. Why didn't you tell me? I've missed you so much these last few days. William sniffed. Have you been drinking? Ambrosio, clinging to his arm with a silly grin, said, It was the last day of training camp, so I invited some close friends over. Want to join us, darling? She sounded tipsy. Several of the women's eyes lit up at the invitation. A round-faced girl with a baby-soft look winked at William more than once. William felt the pull, but he didn't dare. With his reputation and the expectations around him, he kept everything restrained. He kissed Ambrosio's forehead and smiled. No, I'm going to shower and rest. I've been busy. Don't stay up too late. I'll run you a bath, darling, Ambrosio said, ignoring her friends and steering him toward the master suite. The women in the living room watched them go, secretly resentful. The round-faced girl, left sulking on the sofa, poured herself a large glass of champagne and took a long swallow. The others sat in silence, disappointed. The plan to lure William into the party had failed. Maybe he's just tired, one of them muttered. Or maybe he doesn't find us attractive. Should we sneak upstairs and see? A Latina girl whispered. Are you crazy? Another hissed. If William Devonshire gets angry, we're the ones who'll be in trouble. He's a billionaire and an earl's heir. Don't drag us into your madness. After a while, Ambrosio came downstairs, visibly flushed and tired. Sorry, girls, I didn't expect William home today. That's it for tonight. Anywhere except the master bedroom is fine. I need to rest. Good night. They left in a huff, cursing William as a coward who hid upstairs. William had kept an eye on them the whole time. He was secretly pleased when they departed. After he coaxed Ambrosio off to sleep, he got up again at 2 a.m, changed, and slipped out. Under the cover of night, he made his way to Trinity Church, not far from his house. He used his mental power to scan and avoid cameras as he descended to the church's basement. He turned on his flashlight and trained it on a tombstone, heart pounding as he read the inscription, Baddington Lane. He'd found it. William focused his mental power and probed the stone. He sensed a secret passage, but it wasn't the one he expected. Beneath that tombstone, a rotten wooden ladder led down, 200 years old probably, too risky to trust. If it collapsed, he could be trapped or worse. Besides, even if he descended, he would still need that aquamarine pipe to open whatever mechanism lay below. He scanned the surrounding stones and found another hidden entrance a few meters away. This one opened onto a stair of carved stone, not a fragile ladder. He worked the mechanism, slid the stone aside, and went down, staying alert with his mental perception to detect any traps. He circled down for over 10 minutes and then emerged into a huge underground chamber. His flashlight's beam caught on metal and gemstones, throwing golden reflections across the vaulted ceiling. Treasure. Countless artifacts lay heaped in piles. The Devonshire family's long-sought hoard was finally real and sitting before him. His hands trembled. But excitement had to be checked. How to deal with all this? Moving the valuables was straightforward. He could set teleportation coordinates and send gold and jewels directly into his storage space and back to the castle. The large antiques and oversized artifacts were the problem. There were too many and too bulky to move easily. William set the teleportation coordinates anyway. He returned to the church, replaced the tombstone exactly as it had been, checking meticulously for any sign of tampering. Satisfied, he opened a portal and transported himself back to the treasure chamber. He sank into himself, letting his mental power fold inward. Then the system chimed, the familiar ding he'd only heard twice before. A notification popped up in his system panel. His magic level had increased. His mental power surged, more than tenfold. For a dizzy moment, the world tilted. After 10 minutes, it steadied. He reached out reflexively and felt it. 5 or 6 flying knives appeared and hovered around him as if summoned by thought. He used to be able to control only 2. His physical strength and constitution, too, had been enhanced by the system's magic energy. If before he'd been 7 or 8 times a normal person, now his body felt like it had reached tenfold. He felt a bottleneck break, his muscles, endurance, and mental reach all improving. His mental scanning range extended beyond 200 meters. Everything had increased: power, perception, and control. The treasure meant wealth, the power meant new complications. He couldn't go back to training partners who couldn't keep up. Ambrosio alone wouldn't be able to handle him anymore. It was a pleasant problem to have. It was almost 4 in the morning. William set warning spells on both secret passage entrances, then teleported back to his study. He changed into pajamas, hugged Ambrosio, who slept on peacefully, and slept until morning. At 9, after eating the Brazilian breakfast Ambrosio had prepared, he saw her off to training camp. A short while later, his phone rang, the church calling. "Morning, William, are you free?" the voice asked. "If it's important, say it. I've got plans," William replied, sipping the bitter gourd and honey juice Ambrosio had made. "I have a friend here who'd like to meet you," the caller said. "She's English, and she says she knew your maternal grandfather." Chapter 126. You know my grandfather? William thought anyone who knew Henry and was introduced by the church had to be important. "Who is she? Why are they looking for me?" "She used to be Victoria Winslow, Ben Gates's mother. Now she goes by Emily Appleton. I think you should see her. She's one of yours." "One of ours?" William's chest tightened. He felt a sting of guilt but kept his voice flat. "I don't know her. Isn't she a university professor? Sorry, I don't have time. What does Ben Gates have to do with me? If you want to help, talk to your colleagues. They're handling it." He didn't want Ben Gates cleared right now. The Templar treasure wasn't the only prize. There was, William remembered, something bigger in Washington, D.C. For the moment, it was better to leave Ben in prison until William found the city of gold. He was about to hang up when the doorbell rang. The church chuckled. "I hear the bell. She should be downstairs. It's your call whether you meet her. As friends who've worked together, I'd suggest you do. You should understand what a woman will do for her son and ex-husband. Good luck, William." William stared at the thin, kindly face on the screen. If the church hadn't said who she was, he wouldn't have guessed she'd been Henry's wife, or an English special agent. Since she was already here, refusing to meet her would look suspicious. He pressed the elevator button. A minute later, the elevator opened. The old woman smiled and extended a hand. "Hello, William. I'm Victoria Winslow." "Hello, Mrs. Cavendish. I'm William Cavendish. Please come in." William shook her hand and glanced at the backpack she carried. "Follow me." They exchanged polite conversation for a while. William agreed only to one thing. If asked to testify, he would not reveal that Ben Gates had stolen the genuine Declaration of Independence and hidden it in his car. That promise pleased Victoria, but it wasn't what she had really come for. Even if the Declaration wasn't Ben's, she knew he still faced years, possibly decades in prison. Victoria picked up the backpack. "Thank you. I think these belong with the Cavendishes. They're no use to me anymore. I'll be going now, William. Call me if you have any thoughts." She handed over a business card. William watched the elevator doors close and felt a strange, unsettled curiosity. She'd only left a backpack and gone? He had scanned it when she arrived. No weapons, nothing dangerous. Mostly papers, he detected. Could they be the Cavendish family's secrets or leverage? He opened the backpack. Inside was a file folder with old letters and photographs. As he flipped through them, his heart stopped. The young man in the photos looked exactly like his grandfather, Henry. The woman beside him was unmistakably Victoria. Right between the photos was a marriage certificate, Henry Cavendish and Victoria Winslow. William's hands shook. He dialed the number on the card. After 2 rings, she picked up. "Hello, William." Before Victoria could say more, William blurted, "Victoria, don't tell me Ben Gates' last name is actually Cavendish." She laughed. "Oh, no, William. Ben is only 34. These letters are over 40 years old. Look at the dates." William let out a long, guilty breath. Thank God. He'd truly feared Ben might be his grandfather's illegitimate son. If that had been the case, he'd have had no intention of helping. He might have even killed him. "Then why did you and Henry break up? Why leave these things for me? Is this blackmail?" Victoria paused. "Open the door. I'm downstairs. Now we can talk properly. Your grandfather's wife, your grandmother, William." "You're not my grandmother. You're Henry's ex-wife," William snapped, more sharply than he meant to. Still, Victoria's words forced him to admit they'd had a relationship that went deeper than he'd known. Henry had been in his 30s when he married Victoria. Before that, no one really knew his personal life. Many had thought him odd for marrying so late. Seeing Victoria now, William's earlier coolness faded. He wanted to know why she and Henry had separated and why she was leaving these proofs behind if they hadn't officially divorced. "Tell me what I need to know, Victoria," he said. "That will decide whether I help you." She smiled. "Sit down, child. Let me tell you slowly." William refilled her coffee and waited. She savored a few slow sips and seemed pleased at his calm. "Very good," she said. "You're steadier than I expected." William didn't care about a blood tie unless it mattered. He wasn't going to open his heart to every relative who appeared out of nowhere. Victoria must be the anxious one. She sighed, then launched into the story. "Henry and I were married, yet not married," she began. "We were both special agents. I worked in the field. I did assassinations. Henry was just starting to make a name for himself. We married in secret. 2 years later, my superior suspected loyalties and gave me a test. The target was my husband, your grandfather." William's face darkened. Henry had been alive then. Victoria continued. "No one but a few knew Henry and I were married. If I refused, they would kill me. So I staged something. I found a stand-in boyfriend and lived with him for months to make it believable. When my superior demanded proof, I shot the stand-in 3 times in front of him. So the Cavendish family owes me a life, William. Now I want you to repay it." William leaned back, skeptical. "Those are just stories. Henry's dead. I can't verify any of this. Words from special agents don't hold weight on their own." "I knew you'd say that." Victoria took out her phone and dialed. After a few beeps, another voice came through, hard, clipped. "Good morning, Victoria. Stretching your muscles again?" "Winston, I'm at William's house," she said. There was a short, sharp intake of breath. "What are you doing with William? Don't forget our arrangement. Do you want to be hunted, Victoria Winslow? Something's happened to my child, and I need William." Victoria's voice hardened. "Don't act like you don't know about the Declaration of Independence. Others may not understand what William's done, but I do. Winston, don't forget who handled those who threatened William and Lena over the last 10 years. While many gave up, I never stopped protecting that boy. I know what he's been through this year. Do you think he'd get involved with the Declaration for no reason?" "So Ben Gates is your son?" Winston mused for a moment. "That's a surprise, Victoria. All right, put him on." William said, "No need. I can hear you." Hearing Winston shifted something in him. Henry and Winston were both cautious men. That Victoria, Henry's wife, had been the one handling threats to William and his mother made grim sense. "Sorry, William," Winston said after a pause. "Henry instructed me not to tell you about Victoria. He didn't want to sully his image in your mind." "It's fine, Winston. I just wanted to know if she's been protecting my mother and me these past 10 years. Henry's private life doesn't matter to me." Winston exhaled with relief. "For the last decade, I collected intelligence and monitored situations. Victoria took action. She used to be MI6's ace assassin, and she was Henry's wife. Most wouldn't suspect a woman posing as a university professor in her 50s, now 60s, of being an operative. Oh, Winston, Victoria snapped into the phone. I'm only 63. I'm not that old. Winston's voice softened. Apologies, Victoria. You don't look a day over. Well, my mistake. William let that information settle. It explained a lot. Why threats against him and Lena had been quietly neutralized, why Victoria had been allowed to move anonymously, and why she'd been accepted in academic circles. She had sacrificed much in that past life and risked exposure to save Henry once. She'd come now, not for herself, but for her son. Victoria folded her hands and looked at William. I didn't bring these things to threaten you, she said quietly. I brought them because you belong to that family. I need your help for Ben. William stared at the worn marriage certificate in his hands, at the photographs where the young Henry smiled like someone he thought he knew but never fully understood. So much of the past had been hidden. For the first time in a long time, he felt the tug of history, the debts and loyalties that wound across generations, and the obligations people carried, often in silence. He set the papers down and folded his arms. Tell me everything, he said. Start from the beginning. William felt a little startled by Winston's tone. It sounded as if Winston was intimidated by Victoria, whether because she was Henry's wife or because she had some other formidable quality, he couldn't tell. Either way, William's opinion of the old woman softened. She seemed kind and considerate. All right, Winston, we'll talk later. Victoria and I still have things to discuss. Winston understood and wrapped up quickly. Okay, talk to you next time. Goodbye, Victoria. Goodbye, William. Goodbye, Winston, William replied. Next time we meet, I'll remind you what to watch out for when you speak, Winston. Don't forget I'm your aunt. Oh, goodbye, Victoria. Winston hung up. Victoria smiled at William. He used to call me aunt. I met him long before your grandmother did. Victoria, thank you for protecting my mother and me all these years, William said. Tell me, what do you need me to do? He felt genuine gratitude toward the woman who had shielded them for a decade. He couldn't bear to be cold with her. You little fox, you're as heartless as Henry, Victoria scolded with mock reproach. I don't know which poor girl will end up marrying you. Don't tell me you don't have the Declaration of Independence. I watched you at Black Mountain, winning at the casino, then gunning down those mercenaries at the hotel. And now you behave like this toward the people who protected you? William thought, he's not my grandmother, but he kept that to himself. Facing someone who had kept them alive, he didn't dare be sharp. He quickly raised both hands in apology and scribbled on a notepad. I know who stole the Declaration of Independence, and I have a way to deal with the thief and recover it. Victoria's eyes narrowed as she regarded the careful young man. Henry had trained him well, ruthless and suspicious, even at 20. She realized William had been willing to sacrifice subordinates who'd hidden in the National Archives for 2 days waiting for an opportunity, just to clean the problem up. She figured he saw it as repaying a debt. At the thought of that assassin, she snorted coldly. Good thing you're suspicious by nature and thorough. Otherwise, Ben and Pat might have been killed by you. If that had happened, I wouldn't know what to do. William felt a strange relief. If not for the system's prohibition on killing innocents, he knew Ben Gates might have been eliminated back at Barrow Point. He inwardly shuddered at the thought of having to eliminate everyone who could be a threat to his mother, and even his Uncle Winston, if things had gone that far. Thankfully, it hadn't. There was still hope. He led Victoria to his secret room. I can give you back the Declaration, but even if we get it returned, Ben Gates will still be charged. The chances he escapes conviction are slim. Do you have any ideas? Victoria was quiet a moment, studying him. If the Declaration simply reappeared at the National Archives, would that clear Ben, or at least keep him from facing a severe sentence? William shrugged. Returning the document would help, but it wouldn't erase suspicion. Then an idea brightened his face. If all else fails, we make Ben Gates a hero. Victoria saw the gleam in his eye. How do you mean? If we can't fully exonerate him, we downplay the theft and highlight what the Gates family sacrificed for a dozen generations searching for a treasure. Then, in a year or two, we stage a crisis in which Ben emerges as a savior. Victoria's brow furrowed. What crisis? Incite a prison riot and have Ben put it down? No, terrible idea. If it gets out, everyone involved would be ruined. But imagine this. A plane gets hijacked by dangerous criminals. If Ben Gates, along with a few prison guards, crew, and some other prisoners, saves everyone on board and the media blows it up, Ben becomes a national hero. Benjamin Arthur, the country's Grand Steward, has been through a rough patch lately. One good story would be irresistible for him to honor. Victoria got thoughtful, then nodded. If we choose the right prisoners, or plant a few of our own among them, we might not need to intervene. If things go wrong, we'll remove anyone who is not on our side. No, William said. We should go all the way. Apart from a handful of hardened criminals we can't redeem, it's safer if everyone else is one of ours. The more people Ben saves, the greater his credit. We should use a large commercial plane. Big companies have clout and will cooperate for public relations if their assets and reputation are protected. If we build momentum, the media will run with the story, and Benjamin Arthur will have to recognize Ben. The scheme made sense to Victoria. She'd lived long enough to know people and call in favors, and with enough money, almost anything was possible. Before she could speak, William carefully handed her a check, $10 million. Victoria looked at it, then threw her arms around him and kissed his forehead. William, you're extraordinary. I haven't wasted my affection for you. When you were little and bullied, I even taught those parents a lesson. This money makes things much easier. William felt awkward but glad. If Ben ever realized the treasure's true value and that William had only given his mother $10 million, would Ben be resentful? He smiled and said, "Don't worry, Victoria. If it's not enough, come to me. You know my situation. If money can fix it, it's not a problem." Victoria waved him off. "No, I've saved some myself over the years. Retirement gets dull, so I sometimes take little jobs for Winston." William shook his head. "Keep your savings. The check I gave you is routed through multiple offshore accounts, safe and untraceable. We need to be careful about the hijacking plan. Spend money rather than put ourselves directly in danger." She agreed and promised to find desperate people, those willing to act as prisoners and escort guards for cash. If she needed more, she would come back. William smiled. "From now on, your business is my business. You protected us for 10 years. Now let me make sure you have a comfortable life." With a plan in hand, Victoria's mood lifted and she laughed. William left her in high spirits. Later, alone on the sofa, William mulled over the larger strategy. Since the declaration had been stolen, no one would believe the treasure didn't exist. Who would expend such effort otherwise? He decided to muddy the waters even more, make it look like the theft had been meant to protect the treasure, and that only the Freemasons would have motive to do that. If the Americans never found evidence of the treasure's movement, people would assume the thief had merely hidden it to safeguard it, leaving it dormant in some corner of the country. Only the Freemasons would be credited with preserving the secret and returning the declaration intact. Ordinary enemies who found it would have destroyed the document to avoid future trouble. All William needed to handle was transporting the real item. He could open a teleportation gate for that. He dressed and went to the supermarket. Back home, he mixed several common household liquids with some rubbing alcohol and tested them on the back of the declaration. The formulas and patterns there vanished. Next, he mixed lemon juice with other ordinary compounds and, using a stencil, wrote the words, "The treasure shall never see the light of day," along with an ancient Masonic eye symbol. When the lemon juice ink dried, he breathed on the back of the document, and the message subtly revealed itself, exactly as he had planned. At midnight, he teleported into the Washington, D.C. sewer system he had used before. After scanning mentally to make sure no one was around, he climbed out and affixed the document to the hand of the Lincoln statue at the Lincoln Memorial, leaving it where it would be discovered. The next morning, the news confirmed what he expected. Someone had found a document lodged in Lincoln's hand, and the National Archives and the Secret Service had taken it back for inspection. After over an hour of preliminary analysis, experts agreed it was indeed the stolen Declaration of Independence. There were clear traces of liquid on the back of the document, though, which disappointed some who had hoped for a pristine return. But the find had been made public. William grinned at the thought of what would come next. Chapter 128. The document had been tampered with, and its secrets had been revealed. After a careful restoration, the specialists found a phrase hidden behind the declaration: "The treasure will never see the light of day," accompanied by a Masonic symbol. The room fell silent. Several of the specialists exchanged looks of genuine surprise, each wondering whether their own faction was implicated. They were seasoned operatives. It was impossible to read anything decisive from their faces. But Sedes, who had been living a nightmare for days, stormed into the conference room and glared at them. He knew these specialists were the trusted agents of the Grand Elders of several major Freemason lodges. While he couldn't yet prove it was an inside job, he was convinced that only the Freemasons could have engineered such a thing. With his family already sent to Switzerland, he had no patience left for subtleties. "We need to talk," he said. The specialists were equally wary. This required careful verification before any report went up the chain. Sedes led them into a smaller conference room. His agents swept the room with instruments and announced, "Secure, sir." "Good. Guard the door. No one comes in," Sedes ordered. Soon he was alone with the four specialists. He wasted no time. "Was this one of ours?" he demanded. A man in his 50s bristled. "Watch your tone, Sedes. You're a mid-level officer. You don't have the authority to order us around." Sedes ignored the protest. He laid several documents on the table with a hard slap. "These are the testimonies of Ben Gates and Riley, and my notes from the last few days. 2 years ago, Ian suddenly funded Ben Gates with a sum larger than Ian's known assets. That means someone had been watching Ben for at least 2 years. The moment Ben found a clue, Ian and his team were silenced at a farmhouse outside Pittsburgh. One of Ian's men, Shaw, vanished. His family took a cash payout of £5 million yesterday and left for Switzerland." He tapped the next file. "This file is what I dug up on the National Archives. 17 officials, and 14 of them have problems. The director? He has ambiguous relationships with 7 women. 4 of them bore his children and live in mansions. Read the rest for yourselves if you want to be disgusted." Sedes slammed his hand on the table. "Look at page 11. The art dealer XXX and the souvenir shop company. Don't tell me those aren't our people. There are dozens connected to us. Besides our own people, who else could secretly remove the Declaration of Independence without anyone noticing? If not for a hidden camera that caught a blurry image of the thief, the mastermind, who tried to frame Ben Gates and William Devlin, might never have returned the document to relieve the pressure. The declaration could have ended up in a private collection, never to see the light of day." The specialists felt their outrage rise as they reviewed the files. Corruption ran deeper than any of them had hoped. Still, they weren't naive. "Calm down," one said. "If this were ours, they wouldn't need to steal the declaration. They could have simply manufactured a reason to inspect it openly." Sedes shook his head. "Nobody knew there was a secret behind the declaration until Ben Gates found evidence at Barrow Point. Once that happened, someone wanted a monopoly. You don't frame and eliminate people unless you mean to keep the prize for yourself. Returning the document as a show of power and destroying the secret is a message. It's ours. Don't meddle." His words landed. The 4 men exchanged worried looks. The possibility was too plausible to ignore. "We'll report everything," one said finally. "Keep an eye on William Devlin. He's not above suspicion." The room stiffened. They all knew William was on the list of suspects, but the timing and method made them skeptical. William was an Englishman who had risen fast in less than a year. They found it hard to believe he could orchestrate all this within days of finding a clue. Still, formal reports had to be filed. They left displeased, each to brief their superiors. That evening, William received a short text. "Thank you." He smiled, recognized Victoria's shorthand, and replied, "You're welcome." He then dove into the system to study the technology files on the tech page. Half an hour later, a new message came in from Chappell requesting a meeting. William had expected Chappell to call. What surprised him was the location: Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. Curious, William sent a single question mark. After more than 10 minutes, Chappell called. "Hello, William." "You sound happy," William said. "Of course, I finally get a vacation to see my wife," Chappell replied. The answer startled William. You have a wife? Damn it, William. I'm almost 60. Of course I have a wife. 2 kids, too. Victoria had told William that Chapel was trustworthy, a man who kept secrets and would only barter them when necessary. Chapel's offhand mention of family was meant to reassure, to make clear he wasn't the sort to betray people through their loved ones. William exhaled. All right, I'll meet you in 5 hours. 3rd floor cafe at Caesar's Palace, Chapel said. William booked a private jet and arrived in Las Vegas to find a motorcade waiting, a Rolls-Royce and 2 SUVs. A woman in her 30s approached, bowed, and introduced herself. Good evening, Mr. Devlin. I'm Jessie, your exclusive butler while you're at Caesar's Palace. If you need anything, please tell me. William took the rolls and reached the hotel within half an hour. He freshened up in the presidential suite and changed into formal attire provided by Jessie. Jessie and 2 attendants escorted him to the cafe. Chapel was already there, sitting by a floor-to-ceiling window, sipping coffee and looking out over the neon sprawl. Hi, Willis, William greeted, grinning. Where's your wife? Shouldn't you be with her? Chapel sighed. Call me Frank. My name in the service is Frank Moses, and would these 3 lovely ladies mind giving us a moment? Are not used to being fussed over like royalty. William glanced at Jessie and the 2 attendants, all striking. Sorry, Frank. I just assumed you'd be with your wife. Jessie, this gentleman would like a bit of privacy. You 3 go relax. My treat, Frank said. Jessie smiled and led them away. Once they were alone, Frank raised an eyebrow at William's smirk. Word gets around. Caesar's Palace even supplies an exclusive butler for you. William laughed. I'm rich, I'm young, and I'm supposed to be glamorous. What else is a nobleman to do? Frank's expression turned mock stern. I hear these exclusive attendants sometimes fulfill special requests. Ever tried that? Please don't, William said, exasperated. I'm a playboy, not a circus act. Frank chuckled and then grew serious. Enough. I need your help. Consider it payment for my silence. William stopped teasing. What is it? Frank leaned in. Same thing I told Barney months ago. I need you to help remove a leader on Ballina Island, off the coast of South America. Chapter 129. Ha, is that it? As long as you're willing to pay, Barney and the others will take on anything. You flew me out to Las Vegas for this? You could have just made a phone call instead of making me sit on a plane for 5 hours. It's safer this way. I'm here to see my wife, and you're here to have a good time, Church said with a slight smile. He glanced at William and added, There might be a problem with the money, though. What problem? I know your department isn't short. Last time at Black Mountain, you handed me $20 million without blinking. We're not short on cash, but I don't want to pay this time, Church chuckled. William stared at him, surprised, and after a beat, he understood. How much did the Secret Service give you? That's so tempting. Church leaned closer and whispered, $5 million, all cash, no paper trail. Wouldn't you be tempted? $5 million? William frowned. Is that all it takes for you to call in a favor? My favor is only worth $5 million? Church, you're being ridiculous. If anyone found out, even if they didn't hang you out to dry, you'd be fired in an instant. Heh, Church said, unconcerned. I've heard things about you. William, you're dangerous. Not someone I'd want coming after me if I had nothing to hold over you. This way I've got leverage. You'll be comfortable, and I can squirrel the money away until I retire. Maybe after I retire, we can do business like Victoria. William's laugh didn't reach his eyes. Maybe he thought Church was a planted agent. He kept his voice light. We'll talk when you actually retire. Maybe we can cooperate. I'll provide the money. You handle the work. Happy to, Church said. Happy cooperation. They clinked coffee cups. Church slid a folder across the table. Here's the information. William opened the folder out of habit, though he already had a good idea what it contained. The initial files matched his memories, but conspicuously absent was any mention of a mole in the Secret Service. He patted the folder, narrowed his eyes, and looked up. This file isn't complete, Church. Trying to pull a fast one? Church's face registered surprise, then realization. You know? Of course, William replied, flicking through the pages. Don't forget what I do. I might not hold an official title, but my reach is still broad. The English Secret Service is weakened, not dead. I can find what I need, or if you prefer, I can take care of your mole Monroe for you. Save us both the trouble. We're not just thinking about getting rid of Monroe. Church said. If you know the situation, you should know what my superiors want. They aren't going to give up Bylina Island. Their annual take from that place was huge, dozens of times more than the 5 million I slipped out. Good, William muttered. They can go to hell. They're as rotten as the rest of them. He lowered his voice. What's the story with this Jet Froby? How is that fake Albanian general still alive? Is he heading to Bylina Island? Church's eyes lit up. I figured you'd be interested. He's just gone back to South Africa. Word is a 60-carat pink diamond surfaced there. If it's internally flawless, it could fetch $30 million or more. One of Froby's lieutenants, a minor guy named Danny, knows something about it. Froby rushed back to South Africa, and his top lieutenant is the one coming to Bylina Island this time. A 60-carat pink? William's voice tightened. That would rank among the top gems in the world. That's right. If it's real, it's enormous money. Froby has a strong network now, thousands of men recruited in South Africa and Albania, and he had help from an arms dealer named Stonebanks who stabilized him after Albania. You're not going to remove him with a couple of hit squads. William nodded grimly. I didn't expect his reach to be this extensive. I spent tens of millions once, hired mercs, tried to cut him off, but I couldn't get near him. We killed some captains and small fry, but not him. If you killed his lieutenants, your money wasn't wasted, Church said. But to take Froby down, you'd need an army. That's his turf in South Africa. We don't have that kind of manpower, and I don't want to touch anything to do with flour. Let my superiors handle what's theirs. William thought of Monroe and Church's bosses and then said, I'll handle this mission for you. Once it's done, we're even. Church grinned. Deal. Once it's finished, we're square. You be the rich benefactor. I'll be the operative. William smirked. How many aliases do you actually have? Church counted on his fingers. Frank Moses, my real name if you want to call it that. Alias Church. Undercover identity John McClane, pretending to be an NYPD cop when it helps. There are others, but they won't do you any good. William rolled his eyes. Fine. I don't want to know the rest. You can get out of here. I don't want to see you for a while. I'll notify you when the job is done. No worries, Church said, standing and straightening his suit. Enjoy married life. And don't forget to sweep Bylina Island for flour dealers. He chuckled, teased William a little more, then left. Watching Church go, William wondered if the old man was serious about running. He wasn't sure Church would ever truly step away, but this wasn't his fight to micromanage. He'd do what needed doing and let others handle their own messes. He snapped his fingers. Butler Jesse immediately stepped forward. Mr. Devonshire? I'm hungry. Get me something local. After dinner, I want to take a walk. Any recommendations? Certainly, sir. Jesse nodded, spoke briefly to a maid, then answered. Cirque du Soleil is a signature in Las Vegas. Several productions running for nearly 20 years, hundreds of shows. If you prefer something more intimate, there are magic and comedy performances as well. What about gambling houses? William asked. Jesse smiled. As your personal butler, I wouldn't recommend you gamble. If you want to practice card skills among enthusiasts, Texas Hold'em is the most respectable. William thought playing Texas Hold'em was just a way to lose money gracefully. As they chatted, two maids arrived with trays. Jesse arranged the dishes with a practiced flourish. Enjoy your meal, Mr. Devonshire. Thank you, Jesse. Your service is impeccable. Care to join me? I must apologize, sir, Jesse said with a small bow. William laughed. Beautiful people must watch their figures. He'd enjoy the food alone. Half an hour later, he was contentedly sated. Led by Jesse, he walked into the casino. The moment they stepped onto the gaming floor, a gasped chorus erupted from a craps table. William turned toward the commotion and caught sight of a man in sunglasses, bellowing theatrically, come on, I'll take all your bets today. I am a Lambel, the god of luck at this table. Chapter 130. Seeing William staring at the man in sunglasses, Jesse leaned in and whispered, Mr. Devonhill, that's Tony Stark. He's a regular here. If the hall's too noisy, we can go to a private room. There are tables for Texas Hold'em. William chuckled. The pretty housekeeper certainly knew how to put it. He'd never seen a 31-year-old Tony Stark before. He waved her off, indicating it was fine. As they moved closer to the table, several people recognized the recently famous William. A few girls even covered their mouths and whispered, William? Tony, in a good mood and enjoying the attention, noticed a girl beside him staring at William like a fangirl and felt irritated. He shot a look at William and snorted. "Hey, kid, are you old enough to be in here? This is an adult's place." William's face fell for a second. He wasn't 21 yet, so he couldn't legally gamble. He had been hoping to make a little money off Tony, but if he couldn't bet, there was nothing to do. Stark, amused by his expression, grinned. "Go home and sleep, little English boy. If your mom finds out, she might spank you. Remember to drink a glass of milk before bed. Good for you." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Stark waved a dismissive hand. "If you can't play, don't stand in my way while I win money, you little brat." William realized then just how loud-mouthed Tony was. He opened his mouth to snap back, something like, "At least I have a mom, some people are orphans," but the thought of bringing up someone's parent stopped him. There was a line between teasing and cruelty. Instead, he looked at the dice in Stark's hand and said coolly, "Some people are even more childish than I am. I dropped these games when I was 5. It's so low level. Throw it, pick it up, throw it, pick it up. I'd rather watch my own show. Hanging around people like that might lower my IQ." He glanced at the dice with a smirk. Tony frowned, the insult cutting through the noise. William wasn't wrong. Dice games could be banal, so Stark couldn't find a perfect retort. The crowd looked from one to the other, entertained. A few people who'd long been annoyed by Stark cheered. "Well said, William! Stark's a child. He shouts like a lunatic over dice." Insulted, Stark grew red with anger. Seeing William turning to leave, and noting the streak of luck the young man seemed to have, he darted his eyes and called out, "Wait, little brat. How about we play something more interesting?" William stopped and turned back. "If you think it's childish, would it still be childish if each bet was $10 million? Gasps spread through the room. William shook his head and smiled. "I don't play baby games with babies. Go home and play with your secretary. She'll fawn over you. Wow, Stark, you're amazing. She'll tuck you in and pour you a glass of milk." The crowd erupted into laughter. Some laughed so hard they spat their wine. Others coughed and panted at the spectacle. No one expected the polite William Devonhill to have such a sharp tongue. The laughter made Stark flush. He glared at William, but this time his chief bodyguard, Happy, didn't order a beatdown. He pulled Stark aside and whispered in his ear. Stark calmed down quickly. "All right, kid, you pushed me too far. What's your play? Today, you'll learn not to provoke someone more powerful than you." William ignored the bluster. He knew Stark was bright, but he didn't back down easily. He asked Jesse, "I'm not 21. Is there any way I can play with Stark?" Jesse, who'd worked at Caesar's palace for years, had seen this situation before. The rule is you can't place bets under 21, but if the funds you're betting are held in another approved jurisdiction, another country or bank, it's not technically a violation here. We can facilitate it, but if the other party reneges, we can't guarantee recovery. That's on you. Before William could reply, Stark, overhearing Jesse, brightened. "Perfect. Who am I? Tony Stark. I'm worth a lot. Kid, I could bankrupt you. But if you renege, you'll never do anything in this country again." William grinned. "Heh, you're offering me money? I'd be rude to refuse. Come on, baby Stark." That got to him. "Fuck you, you little English brat," Stark swore, then looked to the lobby manager. "Take me to a VIP room. Don't let that kid walk off." "Of course, Mr. Stark," the manager said, bowing. He then turned to William, bowing again. "Mr. Devonhill, I apologize you had to experience this. This is our fault. To make it up to you, the hotel will waive all accommodation and dining fees for you whenever you stay. Stay in any room you like, for as long as you like. We'll treat you as our most distinguished guest." William snorted. "Do I look like I care about the hotel bills? Someone wants to give me money. Lead the way." He smiled at Stark, waiting nearby. Stark, stung by the smile, regretted looking away. He followed William toward the VIP room without another glance back. Caesar's palace staff had already prepared. In the VIP room, the two men sat facing each other. Stark asked, "What game do you want?" "Texas Hold'em," William said. "But maybe that's a bit much for you. We could play higher or lower instead." Everyone allowed into the VIP room was of a certain standing, but seeing William fluster Stark made them disregard decorum. They laughed again. When the dealer took his place, everyone was surprised to see it was Smith. the chairman of Caesar's Palace, an elderly man in his 60s. "Good evening, gentlemen," he said. "Because this match is special, I need to confirm where the funds will be transacted and in which bank." William answered before Stark could. "Swiss National Bank." Smith looked to Stark, who thought a moment and nodded. The Swiss National Bank was acceptable to him. No major bank would openly swindle a man like Stark. Smith continued, "And the amount?" Stark chuckled at William. "Let's not get carried away, kid. If you play too big, you could lose everything and have nothing left." The onlookers were already entertained enough by the bickering that the actual game felt secondary. William considered for a beat, then resolved to tempt Stark properly. He said, $3 billion in cash, plus all patents for the new P3, valued at $1 billion, so $4 billion total, against an equivalent value of shares in Stark Industries. The room went silent. Everyone stared at William in disbelief. "My God, the Devonhill family are all mad," someone muttered. Smith's expression hardened. "Mr. Devonhill, are you sure? If Mr. Stark accepts, the match will be binding. You will have no way to withdraw. If you lose, it could affect your standing. Upper-class America may boycott your business interests. You could become persona non grata." William glanced at Smith with mild surprise. This chairman seemed to know the family, but he ignored the warning and looked straight at Stark, who sat open-mouthed at the $4 billion stake. "Do you agree?" Stark hesitated. He had vast wealth, but most of it was tied up in stock and real estate. He didn't have $3 billion in liquid cash. He thought a few $100 million was a huge risk, but $4 billion? Still, pride and anger warred with prudence. Chapter 131. William didn't push Stark further. If Stark wanted to get involved, he had to do it on his own. Otherwise, he would resent William forever, thinking he'd been forced into it. The VIP room fell silent as everyone watched Stark. If he agreed, this would be the biggest gamble in history. Stuck between pride and opportunity, Stark thought for a long time, then said, "You can have the voting rights, but if I ever want to sell, I get first refusal. I'll buy at market price." The room erupted. No one had expected Stark to accept. What they didn't know was that Stark wasn't foolish. He was looking at the patents William had been quietly registering for the new P3. Over the past few months, William's private lawyer, Anthony, had filed more than 100 patents. Anyone could check the patent office and see what technologies William had locked down, and many were envious. Now William was valuing the whole thing at only $1 billion. Stark smelled a bargain. He was confident that, with proper handling, those patents could be worth $10 billion and generate royalties for decades. He also had Jarvis, his prototype AI, running calculations in the background. William smiled when Stark accepted. "The voting rights can be yours," he said, "but we must hold equal shares and equal rights. You may not dilute my stake. If you do, the agreement is void. The term is 3 years. I think that's ample time for you to prepare, Mr. Stark." Stark considered and nodded. "Fine." William added, "If I want to sell, you have priority. More precisely, I'll only offer them to others after checking with you and receiving a refusal. And there's a 1-month response window. If you don't reply within a month, it'll count as a forfeit." Stark, already focused on William's patents, tapped his phone. He didn't expect to lose. With Jarvis helping him analyze odds, he agreed. The bank and lawyers moved swiftly. In just over an hour, they finalized the contract. Old Smith, after the paperwork was done, asked one last time, "Any objections to me acting as dealer?" Both men shook their heads. "Then let the game begin," Old Smith said. Everyone's excitement tightened. The stakes were enormous. But the outcome was nothing like Stark had hoped. 4 hours later, at 7 in the morning, Stark emerged from the VIP room looking stunned, supported by his chief bodyguard, happy. He couldn't fathom how he'd lost $4 billion worth of Stark Industries shares in 4 hours. His stake had fallen from 32% to 28%, and William had instantly become the company's 7th largest shareholder, privately. In 3 years, William's influence would boom. Stark was furious, but he also had to face the consequences. Back in his suite, Stark replayed the night obsessively in his head. Had he gambled away all his luck in the main hall earlier? He lay on the bed, ruminating over every hand. Unable to accept the result, he got up, summoned Happy and the team, and went straight to Caesar's Palace surveillance room to see exactly how he'd lost. When they arrived, William and Old Smith were already there, watching the footage and grinning. William offered a polite nod, the same calm smile he'd shown all along. Old Smith rose and greeted Stark in his easy way. William gave Stark a small, almost imperceptible gesture, a motion that had the air of someone who enjoyed pulling strings. Stark ignored William's outstretched hand and asked, "I want to see the surveillance from last night." Old Smith obliged. Of course. For fairness, the table was a professional Texas Hold'em tournament table. Each seat has a camera, so we can show the hole cards. There are also cameras under the seats and focused on your upper bodies. We had signal jammers on site. Everything was checked. Happy and his team verified it at the time, and Jarvis checked the monitoring as well. He cued the video for Stark. William and Smith had already watched it once and sat quietly while a couple of professional players and the hotel's analysts narrated. As Stark watched, his face went steadily darker. There was no foul play by the house, no hidden cameras, no electronic interference. What had beaten him was simply human observation. William, patient and meticulous, had cataloged Stark's tells. Tiny movements of the eyes, subtle shifts of mouth and fingers, even the twitch of a pocket square when Stark shifted his weight on his heel. At first, William called and folded seemingly at random, letting Stark's bluffs succeed here and there. But as the night went on, he capitalized on every micro-tell. When Stark had strong hands, he sometimes ate a snack, fiddled with his fingers, or stared a moment too long at the community cards. One or two such gestures could be shrugged off, but the analysts compiled them, and the pattern became undeniable. William read them like an open book. Stark felt his cheeks burn as the video scrolled through hand after hand. He was proud and arrogant by nature, but he had to admit defeat. No cheating against him, just better observation. The thought of $4 billion lost made his chest ache. "All right," he said finally, the anger thin in his voice. "You had me this time. We'll see each other again." Back at his workshop, he'd upgrade Jarvis with every hand from that game for analysis. He'd be ready next time. William chuckled and shook his head when Stark rose to leave. "I'm not mocking you, Tony," he said. "You're one of the smartest people alive, but you'll never beat me at cards." Stark bristled at the compliment. He thought "one of" ought to be dropped, but he was alert. William tapped his temple. "I remember anything I pay attention to. My eyesight is good. I can catch the smallest pupil movements. No one who plays me cold wins on their first try." "You talk too much," Stark replied with a half smile. "That's not why you beat me. You're trying to get me to play again. One time was enough. No way I'm meeting you for that." William shrugged. He'd baited Stark once. That was already a win. "We could grab a drink and talk it over," he suggested. "What do you say?" Old Smith interceded, waving a hand. "Gentlemen, let's not bicker. We're billionaires. Act like it. Tony, it's been years. Come have a drink with an old man." He led them to his private cellar. "I have plenty of aged whiskey. Maybe even some Macallan fine and rare." Stark's eyes lit up. "If you have the 1962, I'll be impressed." They passed through the lobby on the way down, and William's attention snagged on two familiar faces, George and Pete, sitting at a table and watching them nervously. William's expression tightened. He signaled to Old Smith and kept walking. They drove to Old Smith's Las Vegas mansion. Once inside, William and Smith stepped aside to make a phone call, exchanging a look that hinted at plans already forming. "Sorry, I can't access external websites. Please paste the chapter text here, and I'll edit it into natural, idiomatic English." Chapter 133. Only a fool would make a cash acquisition during a stock market crash like this. "Wouldn't it be better to keep the money in your own hands?" Stark scoffed. $3 billion. That's my final offer. Otherwise, forget it, Old Smith replied flatly. "Think about it. If I give you my voting rights, the more shares you hold, the more beneficial it is to you. With my stake, wouldn't your voting power already surpass the critical 33% threshold?" William added. Stark rolled his eyes. If he hadn't already thought of the downside, there was no way he would have agreed to a share-based acquisition. "All right, $3 billion it is," he said at last. William hadn't expected to keep P3 long-term. A few billion now would be fine. He'd rather have the cash than manage a project that wouldn't turn a profit for years. In the hands of a major corporation, it could thrive, and the investment could multiply many times over. Besides, money wasn't the only thing on his mind. Status mattered. With the previous 4% plus this, William would hold 7% of Stark Group's shares with the same rights as Tony Stark's and no risk of dilution. That was worth a lot. William chuckled and shook hands with Stark. Stark, who had been wary of William taking more shares, found he was not actually losing control. If anything, his influence increased because a successful player would boost overall stock value. Under Old Smith's congratulations, they toasted. When the deal was done, the three men drank whiskey, smoked cigars, and chatted. A subordinate knocked, handed Old Smith a document bag, and was dismissed. Old Smith opened the bag, pulled out several photos, and laid them on the table. "Do you mind telling me what happened at Caesar's Palace earlier?" he asked William. "I'm curious why you'd be interested in a con artist and a card sharp. You even ignored your favorite whiskey for them." William didn't answer directly. He met Old Smith's gaze and asked, "Mr. Smith, you're the landlord of Las Vegas. May I ask an unfriendly question?" "An unfriendly question?" Old Smith chuckled. "Go on. I don't know what you mean. Just ask." "If Caesar's Palace suddenly lost hundreds of millions in cash, do you think its stock would plummet the next day?" "Of course it would," Old Smith said, thumping the armrest. "William, have you heard something? Is this about my Caesar's Palace?" Old Smith remained calm, even hearing such news. He'd weathered storms before. "Don't worry, Mr. Smith. It's not about Caesar's Palace." Old Smith breathed a little easier. "Good. Then someone else will be in trouble." He sipped his whiskey. "Who?" William did not beat around the bush. "The Bellagio Hotel." "Terry Benedict?" Old Smith's eyebrows rose. "I never imagined anyone would target him. No one in Las Vegas has ever managed to snatch a penny from our pockets. Are you sure the people you know can really take money from Terry Benedict?" William thought a moment. "I can't be absolutely certain, but from the information I've gathered, they have a shot. Terry Benedict has a bad habit that makes the odds tilt in our favor." "What habit?" Old Smith asked, puzzled. In his impression, Terry Benedict was cautious, serious, and ran Bellagio with military order. He'd gone from one hotel to 3, and even taken over MGM in just 10 years. "He's too meticulous," William said. "Terry micromanages everything. He rushes in to do his subordinates' work. The Bellagio staff have grown careless and perfunctory because Benedict is always stepping in. If you think about it, that's a vulnerability." Old Smith mulled it over and found William's point made sense. "So our opportunity has come?" William glanced at Stark and Smith. Their eyes had lit up. "Exactly. Our opportunity has come." Greedy hyenas. Old Smith topped off their glasses and raised his own. "To success," he said, cheerful. "To success," Stark and William echoed. After a few sips, Stark turned to William. "Who's in charge of the stock market operations? Me and Mr. Smith, or you?" "You two," William said. "Your influence here is far greater than mine. 200 million each. That's 600 million in total for shorting. Any problem?" William didn't want to get his hands dirty. Terry Benedict was a Las Vegas heavyweight. Let Smith and Stark take the lead while William made a quiet profit. Smith frowned. "Isn't 600 million too little, William? When you hit a snake, you have to kill it with one blow. If Terry senses something, his retaliation will be a nightmare. Terry's vindictive. Anyone who caused trouble in his hotels never survived." Old Smith, who seemed kindly on the surface, could be ruthless when it came to business. William glanced at Stark. "That's your opinion, Stark." Stark shrugged and kept his distance. "Not my problem. I'm only responsible for lining up the market watchers. The rest is yours. One of you's a casino magnate, and the other a noble from a family of spies. With careful planning against an unsuspecting target, I don't think many could withstand your combined efforts." He smiled, making sure he stayed out of the dirt. William and Smith ignored Stark's parade of moral disclaimers. William said, "I'll handle Terry. You two handle the short. Whether we can swallow the whole Bellagio group will depend on your clout in Las Vegas, Mr. Smith." "No problem. I know influential people. If your operation succeeds, I'll bring in partners to short Bellagio," Smith said eagerly. "What about my compensation? As the intelligence source and planner, 30% of post-event profits would be fair." William raised an eyebrow. "Isn't the stock market fallout and the stolen cash enough? This shorting operation will require you to give up a huge chunk of the gains. 30% is a lot. Unless you can guarantee Terry Benedict meets with an accident, I don't see how we could swallow the entire Bellagio group. William considered Bellagio's market value, around $20 billion on paper. Even an opportunistic takeover would need tens of billions, but he didn't care about the difficulty. Don't forget, your main goal isn't just money. If you bring the Bellagio down or take it, you won't only eliminate a competitor, you'll warn anyone else trying to muscle into Las Vegas. That's worth more than cash. Smith thought long and hard, then nodded. If this operation succeeds, Terry Benedict must either die or be ruined. We'll pay your compensation in 3 installments. The first will be half, $1 billion, but I prefer giving it in shares of other companies. Tens of billions in cash would be too much of a burden. William did the math. 30% would be more than $2 billion. If you pay in shares, then you must give me $3 billion. Smith shook his head. It's not as simple as you think, William. Even if we book $10 billion on paper, the real profit could be half that. Too many people need to be taken care of for this to succeed. William shrugged. That's your problem, then. The annual income from owning the 3 best hotels will more than cover what you give me. $2.5 billion in cash or $3 billion in shares. Decide which company's stock you can offer me. If I don't like them, I won't take the shares. Stark now understood why some people wanted William dead. The kid, still not 20, was ravenous. Smith sat back and thought longer. He'd considered running the whole thing without William, but he'd seen the file on William. Someone new to wealth but merciless, vindictive, and effective. If things went south later, Smith could always renege. For now, he'd wait until the meat was in his mouth. If William turned out to be less capable than rumored, Smith could back out. All right, Smith said finally. Shares or shares plus cash. William, you truly are a greedy hyena. Bite and never let go. He paused and added more softly, you and your grandfather are different. Henry did things for his country. You don't seem to have the same devotion. William's eyes were cold. Who loved England, he thought. When they forced his grandfather Henry to sell ancestral property, nobody helped. William's soul wasn't English. Loving England takes money, Mr. Smith. When England taxed my family, they didn't care that my 4 great-grandfathers sacrificed for the crown. Even when the old king tried to honor them, people obstructed it. The Cavendishes don't owe England anything. Old Smith, an Englishman himself, felt a pang of sadness. He'd bled for England too, and yet here he was in America making his living. Sigh. Enough of that. It's all up to you now. Whether Stark and I succeed depends on how far you're willing to go. A small matter, William said. As long as there's money to be made, I don't mind dealing with the devil. Stark, give me an account. I'll have someone transfer the funds. And don't get greedy with my money. I'll blow up your Malibu mansion if you do. Don't worry, I won't give you the chance, Stark shot back. You'd better watch yourself too. Don't get killed someday and leave a fortune to who knows who. If anything happens to me, no one gets my money, William said lightly. I know a man nicknamed the Lord of War, Yuri Orlov. If something happens, I'll convert my assets into shiploads of AKs and send them to the barefoot uncles at the Cape of Good Hope. They'll have a happy year. I've also set up revenge funds totaling $1 billion spread among certain organizations. Anyone who tries to kill me can expect visitors from assassins all over the world. All Devonshires are mentally ill. Chapter 134, a $1 billion revenge fund? Smith blurted, staring at William in disbelief. You Devlin Hill family are all mad. Your 4 great-grandfathers were, Henry was, and you're worse than them all. William smiled faintly. When I die, will that flood of money go back to Europe? Goodbye, gentlemen. I still have to work for a living. Some people can make a fortune with nothing but words. I hope my son grows up like those people. He glanced toward the silent Stark as he spoke. Stark met the look and knew the remark was aimed at him. Fuck you, William! Stark exploded. William chuckled. Heh, keep an eye on the news. Bye-bye. After William left, Smith turned to the seething Stark, shook his head and said, Tony, you really should change your personality. If you hadn't provoked William first, he wouldn't have plotted against you the moment he saw you. William's a dangerous friend to have, Smith continued. If you dig into his past, you'll see. He tore up France for a friend once. Still, he has a line. No matter how much ordinary people provoke him, he's never been known to kill civilians. The Devlin Hills are fiercely loyal to friends and merciless to enemies. Wiping out an enemy's whole family has happened in their history more than once. During the war, two of William's great-granduncles even killed their own men to root out those who'd harmed their brother and died for it. So light banter is fine, but when you act, don't hold back. If you can't finish the job, don't start it. Heh, only an idiot would go up against William. Cooperating with him is a win for both sides. Mr. Smith, he's not as unhinged as you think. 90% of what he said today was for show, to teach you a lesson. He was warning you not to default on your debt, Smith added. As an arms dealer, I have no quarrel with him. You should think carefully about what shares you give that miser of a man. If you default, he might even blow up Caesar's palace. Didn't you hear him threaten my house in Malibu? Stark had been quiet because Jarvis was feeding him intel through his earpiece. Even Stark, an arms dealer used to tough men, felt his scalp prickle thinking of William's actions. Still, as old Smith had said, William had a bottom line. He killed only those who deserved it. That fact made Stark reconsider. A precise, ruthless ally could be useful, but being so thoroughly provoked rankled him. He had always been the one to provoke others. When had someone provoked him this badly? Was William really unhinged? Stark decided to watch him closer. He didn't want William having an episode and killing him. If William knew Stark was thinking this, he'd likely beat him senseless. As far as William was concerned, ordinary people who didn't harm him were fine. Those who made him money were even better. Everyone else was just wood. Back at Caesar's palace, William idly told his housekeeper, Jessie, he wanted to see a boxing match. Jessie considered for a moment and replied, There's a Klitschko vs. Lewis WBC and IBO heavyweight fight at the Mirage tomorrow night. If you like, I'll book the best seats. William's eyes lit up. George and Pitt would make their move tomorrow. Book them, please. And if you're free, come with me. I'm short a female companion. Jessie's face warmed, and she looked at him in a way he couldn't quite read. William suppressed a grin. Old Smith had mentioned that Jessie was single, had no record of entertaining guests, and had been promoted to presidential suite housekeeper only last year. William didn't press anything. In Vegas, he reminded himself, discretion rules. Jessie, I want a bath. Please prepare it, he said lightly. Yes, Mr. Devlin Hill. I'll arrange it right away, she answered, cheeks flushed, and directed two maids to prepare the suite. After the bath, Jessie, who didn't refuse his invitation, joined William in the private gym. To his surprise, the delicate-looking woman was an exercise enthusiast. They trained for nearly 2 hours, laughing and drenched in sweat. After lunch, William texted Barney and Christmas, who were still en route, instructing them to meet Brian and Church, prepare their equipment, and wait for his word. Having been up all night, William then fell asleep and didn't wake until midnight. Jessie returned with his clothes. He let her dress him, and then took the dieting housekeeper out to a French dinner at Caesar's palace. Over the meal, he opened the background file Sam had sent on Jessie. No bad habits, 2 past boyfriends, never married, no children, 5 years working at Caesar's palace, promoted to presidential suite housekeeper last year, rents a 140 square meter apartment in Las Vegas. Her monthly salary, $30,000, surprised him. When most of the meal was gone, William asked a question that had been on his mind. Would you consider working for me, just for me, at double your current salary? Jessie was taken aback and hesitated. She wasn't desperate. She had a steady job and assets and wanted time to think. William didn't press. She was clearly flattered by the offer. After dinner, they sat chatting until William sent Jessie back and walked into the suite he'd reserved in a bar at Caesar's palace. Inside, Barney, Christmas, Brian, and Church were drinking, playing cards, and talking. The 4 stood and greeted him with hugs when he appeared. Barney, Christmas, and Brian all called him boss, which made Church, who had known them before, a bit uncomfortable. He was almost 60. The idea of calling a man half his age boss felt strange. Sit down, guys, William said with a smile. We go way back. Don't get to flattering me too much. With Church there, William didn't lord his position over them. Barney and Christmas, who were William's secret operatives, were deferential because they liked and trusted him. Brian was respectful because William had been his boss, had recently saved his daughter and niece, and was now financing his campaign. William made no demands of him except money and to handle things when asked. "All right, business," William said. "You know why I called you." "Of course," Christmas said, loud and eager. "Thanks for thinking of us, boss. 10 million each, and we'd blow up a hotel for you." Everyone laughed. They all knew William wasn't actually going to blow up anything. William continued, "I've got word a crew is planning to rob the Mirage Hotel vault. Our job is to help them succeed. Let them get inside, and then quietly take their haul from them." Everyone perked up at the simplicity. William asked, "Brian, are the counterfeit bills ready?" "Of course," Brian said, checking his watch. "They'll be delivered in about 2 hours. Time was tight, so the print quality isn't perfect. You'll feel the difference." "That's fine," William said. "I just need the right amount of paper. It'll all be burned anyway." He handed files to the four. "These two are the masterminds. Think Danny Ocean and Rusty Ryan, George and Pitt. Start tailing them tonight. They'll move tomorrow." They looked at the files. William hesitated before producing a photo. "This is Linus Caldwell, a master thief. Or at least that's his name. But I'm not sure. I know someone who looks exactly like him, Jason Bourne. Church, can you check him out?" Church took the photo and felt his stomach drop. He genuinely recognized the face. "I think I've seen him at the New York Secret Service office," he said quietly. "William, how did you know something was off about him?" William merely smiled. There weren't many people who didn't know Jason Bourne, the man who'd made the Secret Service look foolish. But William didn't answer. A little mystery could be useful. "If you've seen him, it means Albert, the old man, might be doing side jobs. Be careful when you move. Jason Bourne's an experimental product, very skilled. Since you've seen him, Church, don't show your face. Monitor their computer guy and report to me constantly." "No problem," Church said. He couldn't force William to explain, and besides, everyone in the room was after the same thing, an easy score. Church accepted the risk of going after his colleagues for a payday. Chapter 135. This wasn't a matter of national security, so why not make some money while they could? "Boss, if there are special agents involved, won't we be short-handed?" Barney asked hesitantly, glancing at William. William understood instantly. Barney meant that the job was simple and the pay enormous, $10 million ahead, and he wanted to make sure his team had help. Brian felt it too and looked at William expectantly. William didn't care about a few stolen bills. His wealth was tied up in stocks and in his upcoming short position with Old Smith. At first, he'd thought fewer people meant greater secrecy, but with someone like Jason Bourne on the scene, Barney's 4 men were too few. "Anyone who comes later gets 2 million each," William said. "Tell everyone to keep their mouths shut." "Understood, sir." "Brian, call your men too, and remember, don't screw this up. If you do, even if I don't come after you, some big shots in Vegas will bury you out in the desert." He grinned. "This involves a very, very large sum." When he looked over at Church, William felt a flicker of distrust. Church, who'd already insisted he had no choice and didn't want to be quietly eliminated, hurried to reassure him. "Hey, William, do you think I'd risk being cut out? This is a consortium-level job. I'm not crazy." William chuckled, nodded, and said, "All right, let's get to it. There's no easier money than this." "Understood, boss." With the instructions given, William went back to his suite. Counting the 6 expendables, Brian's 5 men, and Church, they had exactly 12. William didn't believe these old hands couldn't handle George and Pitt, the 2 petty thieves. In a good mood, he dragged Jesse to the gym, and after a sweaty workout and a shower, with Jesse helping him dress comfortably, he went out to see the circus. They didn't get back to the suite until 4 a.m. and slept until noon the next day. After lunch, Jesse guided him through an afternoon of shopping. At 7 that evening, they crossed to the Bellagio, sat front row opposite Caesar's Palace, and waited for the heavyweight boxing match. Before entering the arena, William and Yin Yang passed each other. Yin Yang slipped him an earpiece and a receiver. William realized with amusement that the earpiece Barney's team had supplied was the same hidden type he'd bought on the Washington black market last time. These guys had gone all out. William hooked the receiver to his belt under his clothes and pretended to adjust the earpiece. Soon Church's voice came through. Boss, everything's ready. Danny Ocean and Rusty Ryan will make their move tonight. Good thing you knew who Jason Bourne was. We found two other teams watching Danny Ocean as well. One is clearly the New York Secret Service. The other looks like soldiers. William's stomach tightened. Soldiers? Had he missed something? He tapped Morse code into the receiver, asking Yin Yang to send all the intel on Danny Ocean's group. A few seconds later, Sam's voice answered, "Understood. The information will be left in the East men's restroom." William told an excited Jesse he'd be right back and went to the restroom. He took the packet from Yin Yang and studied the photos. Halfway through, he saw a photo of a black man with glasses, Bashir Tariq. William laughed quietly. The weapons expert cover was fake. This was really James Rhodes, the man who would be called War Machine. America had some brazen people milking the taxpayers in their spare time. And Terry Benedict, owner of the Bellagio? So many people were after him. Was he so careless with his relationships? "Heh, this just got interesting," William said. "How many in each of the other two groups?" Yin Yang thought a moment. 4 from the Secret Service. The soldiers are worse, about 6 in a tactical squad. Then we'll have to neutralize those 2 groups first so they don't ruin our take. Is your gear ready? Enough for a small fight, Yin Yang replied. $2 million a head had that effect on people. William shook his head. No, since we know their positions, send them stun grenades and tranquilizers. They have backing. Killing them will bring big trouble. Understood, Yin Yang said. William assigned Brian to lead his men disguised as Secret Service to handle the soldier squad, while William's people would pose as soldiers to confront the New York Secret Service. Make it look like they were fighting each other. Ideally, don't open fire. If it goes wrong, though, don't hold back. Eliminate them and bury them in the desert. Understood, Yin Yang said with a smile. A planned ambush against an unsuspecting target was straightforward for them. William called Old Smith next to see if he wanted out. If 2 government teams were watching the Bellagio and Old Smith made a move, their superiors might trace it back. Old Smith just chuckled. Don't worry, more people involved is better. Someone might come wanting to cooperate. Gives us deniability. This harvest could be bigger than you think. You're too idealistic about Americans' limits. For money, some won't care if their own country takes a hit. Worry about the small fries, their lives aren't worth much. William hung up, smiling. Realistically, Old Smith was right, but William preferred there be room to maneuver. He didn't want to make a mortal enemy of Rhodes. Rhodes was, at least, a good boss and friend. If Rhodes's people were killed, he might pursue the matter relentlessly. Back in the arena, William listened to Jesse's introductions when a voice greeted him. Hello, Mr. Devlin. He turned to see Terry Benedict standing a meter away with a large-lipped, striking woman. William stood, extended his hand, and said, Hello, Mr. Benedict. I'm William Devlin. Terry shook his hand warmly, a crooked smile on his face. It's an honor to have you here at the Bellagio. May I be so bold as to host you personally. William thought of the boss who micromanaged everything and smiled. Terry liked handling everything himself. No wonder staff motivation suffered under him. William patted Terry's shoulder with his left hand. No need, Terry. Thank you, but tonight's special, and you must be very busy. Let's set a time to talk tomorrow. I'm curious about successful people in America, but I won't trouble you tonight. Terry beamed. Thank you. Then it's settled, Mr. Devlin. I'll come by personally tomorrow. No problem. See you tomorrow, Mr. Benedict, William said, inwardly focused on getting past this hurdle. He glanced after the big-lipped woman leaving with Terry and shook his head. He genuinely didn't see the attraction. Chapter 136. After Terry Benedict left, William focused on the boxing match, listening to Church's report through his earpiece. At 9 o'clock, the long-awaited Klitschko-Lewis fight began, and the arena erupted. Church's voice came through the earpiece. Danny Ocean and his crew have started. Brian, Barney, get ready. Understood. Understood. William chuckled and glanced toward Terry Benedict, who had been watching him. Terry caught William looking and nodded with a smile. The smile didn't last long. Several of Terry's men hurried over and whispered in his ear. Accompanied by Big Mouth Earl and a small group, Terry hurried away. As soon as Terry was gone, William tapped out a coded message on his earpiece to Church. Terry's gone. Copy, Brian. You can proceed, Church replied. Received. Received, came Brian and Barney's voices. A little while later, William heard confirmation. It was done. He grinned. Jessie watched William curiously. The fight was dull. Hadn't she heard people in the stands cursing? William pulled her along. This match is boring. Let's go see something more interesting. You head back first, Jessie. Jessie smiled slightly at his eager expression and shook her head. What was so great about those shows? But she'd seen too much in Las Vegas to make a fuss. This was men's curiosity at work. She let him lead her to a bar with a large sign of a beautiful woman. When Jessie went into Caesar's palace, William turned a corner and walked to a small truck parked nearby. He knocked on the rear door. Church opened it. Are the videos all recorded? William asked Sam, who was at a laptop. No problem. Every move of Danny Ocean and Rusty Ryan's crew was captured. Livingston Dell, their tech, used to be with the Secret Service. I know how he works, so getting into his machine wasn't hard. Sam typed, and the monitors filled with footage. On one screen, Danny Ocean, Jason Bourne, and an Asian man sat bored on a pile of cash, talking. Sam reminded him, Rusty Ryan and his team are in. William watched a feed showing Rusty Ryan and his men in full SWAT gear and sealed helmets, pushing a large bomb disposal case into the Bellagio. After more than 10 minutes, 7 SWAT officers entered, and 10 came out, each carrying a large bag. 2 men pushed the bomb disposal case and shouted, "Watch out for the bomb!" Guests stepped aside. Security at the entrance ordered an evacuation. The ruse worked. Rusty Ryan's 10-man crew pushed the case out, loaded it into an armored car, and sped away. They had calculated exactly what they needed. $160 million in cash weighs 16 tons. Without the case and the ruse, 10 men couldn't have taken it all in bags. Drone, follow them, Church said into his walkie-talkie. Copy, Barney answered. A signal came through, and an armored car appeared on William's monitor. The car drove into a garage on a side street. About 10 minutes later, the 10 men, having changed out of their SWAT uniforms, strolled out of the garage, joking and laughing, heading back toward the Bellagio. William laughed, and Church and Sam joined him. Okay, Church, have Brian and his team go get the money. Put the counterfeit notes we printed into that police car, then set a timer to destroy them. Got it, Church said, rubbing his bald head as he called Brian. William turned to Sam. Is the video ready? It's time to let Terry Benedict see the truth. Terry Benedict was in the middle of meeting with Danny Ocean and was about to let him go when his phone buzzed. A video message arrived, labeled The Truth. He clicked it open. On the screen, Danny Ocean, Jason Bourne, and an Asian man sat inside Terry's vault. The feed cut to a staged scene. A group of SWAT officers pretended to storm the vault, fired a few shots for show, then silently fist-bumped Danny. Danny crawled into a ventilation shaft and escaped. 2 others slipped into SWAT uniforms and helmets and loaded cash into a bomb disposal case, stuffing additional money into brought-in bags and stacking them behind the case to obscure what they were doing. Then the video showed Terry himself entering the vault and pursuing Rusty Ryan's 10 men out the door. Terry felt his heart hammer. He glared at Danny and said, "Take me to my money, or I'll bury you and your accomplices in the desert." Danny had seen, on the same video, the voices and cues that revealed he and his crew were set up. But he was also a seasoned thief. He knew if he betrayed his accomplices now, Terry wouldn't spare them. I advise you to hand me over to the police, Danny said calmly. Do you see the camera behind me? Terry looked up and saw a camera aimed directly at him. Danny smiled. Everything you just said was recorded. If you kill me now, I guarantee it will land you in endless trouble. Turning me over to the police is your safest choice. Terry, you're rich. Losing $160 million is one thing, but a lawsuit and the scandal that follows would cost you many times that amount. Call the police and arrest me. Listening to Danny's words, Terry's anger flared until whispers rattled in his head. Kill him, kill him. Only by killing him can you get your dignity back. The insults and humiliation churned him up. Without another word, Terry grabbed a guard's holstered pistol and opened fire. Bang! 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 More than 10 shots ripped into Danny. When the gun emptied, Terry kept pulling the trigger. Click! Click! As if hoping another round would appear. Danny collapsed, disbelief on his face. He had never imagined Terry would actually shoot him like that. In the truck, William watched everything on the monitor. The whispering that had been in his head fell silent. He found himself strangely pleased by what the curse had set in motion. "Did you record it?" he asked Sam. Sam and Church snapped out of their daze. Sam checked his rig and nodded. "It's recorded." "Good. First, delete the video on Terry's phone, then send the footage of him committing murder to the media. You know how to handle the fallout, right?" "Of course, boss. I'll take care of it. No one will trace it back to us. At worst, they'll follow it to Livingston Dell's computer," Sam said quickly. "Good. After that, take the money back to New York. Once it's safe, split it. My share will be held by Brian for now." Sam's mouth curved into a wide smile. "No problem." "Church, are you collecting the money now or in New York?" William asked. "Heh, I'll take it in New York," Church said. "Thanks, William. I didn't expect this to be so simple. Next time something like this pops up, call me. We're a team now." "Sure," William said. He bade Sam and Church farewell, then walked back toward Caesar's palace with a spring in his step. The next morning, after William woke and washed, Jessie came into the master bedroom with 2 maids carrying clothes. She helped him dress and then told him that Old Man Smith had invited him to breakfast. William checked his watch, already 9 o'clock. If Smith had time to invite him to breakfast, the sniper operation must be going well. Jessie led William to Old Smith's private suite in Caesar's palace. When they stepped out of the elevator, they noticed a lot more security than usual. Men in black suits, white shirts, earpieces. A quick mental scan told William they were all carrying pistols under their jackets. Some even had Uzis concealed. His chest tightened. Was the old man planning an ambush? Even before they reached the door, Old Smith's voice rang out. "Good morning, William. How did you sleep?" "Pretty well," William said with a smile. "I'm very pleased with your hotel's service. So pleased I plan to steal Jessie away to work for me. Too bad she hasn't decided yet." "William, that won't do," Old Smith protested. "I assigned my best employee to serve you, and you're trying to poach her?" He turned to Jessie. "Jessie, I'm promoting you to assistant manager of hotel services, effective immediately. 30% raise." Jessie's face lit up. "Thank you, Mr. Smith. I won't let you down." William rolled his eyes. Why did no attractive woman ever throw herself at him? Was it that unattractive to work by his side? He grumbled theatrically. Fine, let's have breakfast. Such heartbreak, Jessie." Old Smith chuckled at the performance. His methods for keeping trusted staff loyal had worked. Jessie laughed and covered her mouth. She apologized to William for not leaving Caesar's palace, thanking Smith for his generosity. They were served breakfast by Jessie and the maids. Old Smith watched William eat with envy. He'd always had a good appetite, but William seemed insatiable. Afterwards, Old Smith led William to take a walk on the rooftop. The entire roof had been turned into a private garden. Lawns, flowers, trees, little pavilions, everything a wealthy man could want. William admired the extravagance. Maintaining that half-football field of greenery in the desert around Las Vegas must cost a fortune. He couldn't emulate the old money sense of entitlement. They strolled and chatted for a while, then settled on chairs with coffee. Old Smith leaned forward. "Things are moving very fast. Since this morning, dozens of people have called, all trying to get a piece of Beautiful People Hotel Group, hyenas smelling blood." Terry Benedict being taken by the police threw the group into chaos. The stock dropped 16% at the opening. Tony's probably made almost $1 billion by now. If this escalates, the stock could fall by half. This time, Tony used convertible bonds. By the time he unloads the futures, our bonds might convert into half of Beautiful People's shares. He paused, sipped his coffee, and watched William's expression. Then, smiling, he asked, "William, have you ever considered becoming a shareholder in our group? The hotel and tourism industry in Las Vegas is still promising. If you invested now, $100 million could be $300 million in 10 years. William knew the math Smith hinted at. He figured it would be more. But the pace was too slow for him. Also, gambling-related businesses could tarnish his reputation. "Heh, are you short on liquid cash?" he asked. Smith's smile faded. "To swallow Beautiful People outright, we need to secure more than half the shares quickly. If it drags on and other groups get involved, it'll turn into a tug of war, and we need to keep enough cash on hand to keep others from eyeing Caesar's palace. So we hoped you might help." "How?" William asked. You remember your game with Stark, when you produced proof of $3 billion in cash in the Swiss National Bank. Smith's eyes sharpened. We want to borrow $3 billion from you, using 12% of Caesar's Palace Group stock as collateral. 1-year term. We'll pay you back $3.3 billion. 10% interest sounded generous, but William shook his head. No, cash is king right now. I've already got plans for this money. The market's cheap. I'll buy into some big companies in the first half of the year, and they'll double or triple. Smith had expected this. William was the kind of young man who made his fortune in the markets and loved buying at the bottom. But Smith wasn't finished probing. Then, we propose paying your commission in stock. He snapped his fingers. A few lawyers in suits with briefcases stepped forward, set open briefcases on the table, and produced documents. William flipped through them. The top half were British companies, then European ones, no American companies at all. He frowned, annoyed. Near the back, he found something of interest. England Electric, and the papers showed a 16% stake available. Its market value looked to be about £4 billion, around $5.3 billion. William considered whether to take the whole company in a market crash. He had plenty of power-related technologies in mind. He tossed the documents back. Only England Electric piques my interest. I don't care for the rest. Mr. Smith, this is a bit half-hearted. Old Smith blinked, surprised. England Electric wasn't an easy or obviously profitable target. Regulated prices, tricky unions prone to strikes, potential losses if mismanaged. If it were truly promising, others wouldn't have treated it as a burden. Apologies, William. We didn't know your preferences, so we had managers recommend options. If you have a specific target, tell me, and I'll ask our partners if they can arrange it. William smiled. I only want England Electric and Aston Martin. Everything else, I want cash. Smith opened his mouth, then hesitated. William wasn't done. He produced a sheet of paper from his pocket and set it on the table. He leaned back, hands behind his head, legs stretched, squinting at the sky as if bored. Smith's expression changed when his head bodyguard picked up the paper and went to investigate. After 10 minutes, the bodyguard returned and whispered into Smith's ear. Midway through the whisper, Smith went pale. He almost had a heart attack. How dare you, he began. William didn't break his cool. I told you, if you default, I'll blow up Caesar's palace. Consider this a warning, some bullets and small pineapples to remind you. He smiled faintly. This is out of respect for you and for my grandfather being old acquaintances. Otherwise, you wouldn't even be sitting where you are. Smith's dozen bodyguards closed in around William, but something in the old man's gut told him that giving an order to kill William could be disastrous. He couldn't say why, only that standing any closer made the hair on his neck rise. He raised his hand in a weak gesture, then waved the head bodyguard to recall the men. William chuckled. Good choice, Smith. He suddenly waved both hands. There were several white flashes as small objects arced into his palms and returned, 6 throwing knives clutched lightly in his fingers. Smith's bodyguards froze, hands at their throats. Their earpiece wires had been neatly severed. Seeing how easily William could disable them, Smith finally understood the terrible premonition. He backed away, eyes wide, finger trembling as he pointed at William. You? William slid the knives away and yawned. Don't point at me again. I wouldn't guarantee I won't cut it off. He leaned in, voice low. This is your last warning, Mr. Smith. Return my money in full, or I'll wipe out your entire family. Ignoring the guards with pistols, William rose and walked toward the elevator. Just before stepping in, he added, almost casually, Oh, and there's a big pineapple in your private suite's living room. It's a gift from me. Hope you like it. After William left, Smith's head bodyguard ordered a search of the suite. A few minutes later, a subordinate rushed back carrying a military pineapple, a grenade. The head bodyguard swore. Are you crazy? Get that out of here. Dispose of it. He looked at Smith, voice urgent. Boss, this is a cluster-type pineapple. It can bring down a building. The kill radius is over 30 meters, and the worst part, it's a thermobaric device. If it detonates inside, even if someone isn't shredded by the blast, they'll suffocate. If it goes off on our floor, everyone inside is in danger. God, I don't know where he got it. Chapter 138. Fuck, William Devonshire really can get his hands on this kind of stuff. He could get things even more dangerous than this. Why does England's Security Bureau keep recruiting those lunatics from the Devonshire family? God, the whole family's insane. I was trying to negotiate with him, and that bastard planted a dozen bullets and 4 or 5 pineapples in my hotel. As his closest aide, the head bodyguard knew Smith had sounded different in the small hours. Back then, Smith hadn't been talking about negotiation tactics. He'd said if he could stall for a year or so, William Devonshire might die and he wouldn't have to pay. But his head bodyguard was no fool. He didn't tell the enraged Smith the truth. "Boss, I think you should leave the hotel. It's not safe here. There might be other dangerous items. Go to the safe house." "No." Smith calmed himself after a few curses. Where is William Devonshire now? If William, the provocateur, was still in Caesar's palace, the hotel was still more or less safe. Smith didn't believe William would really dare to hurt ordinary people. The head bodyguard spoke into his earpiece, but then realized the earpiece had been cut by William. Under Smith's furious stare, he pulled out his phone and dialed the monitoring room. "Boss." William went to the card room and exchanged a $10,000 chip. He booked a table in the main hall, and he's playing dice against the house. Smith let out a huge sigh of relief. He straightened his suit, sat back, and chuckled. That young Devonshire's got guts. He scares us and then runs to the card room? Is he afraid we'll make a move on him? Humph. Hiding in a crowded place doesn't mean he's safe. Before he'd been happy 10 minutes, though, a subordinate rushed over, breathless. "Something's happened, boss." "What is it?" the head bodyguard asked. "Mr. Devonshire is in the main hall playing dice against the hotel," the man said. "He's already won 5 or 6 rounds in a row." Smith shrugged. 5 or 6 rounds meant nothing. "How much has he won?" he demanded. The subordinate hesitated. "Over $1 million US. "Only 1 million? Smith was surprised. The card games the night before had been in the billions. This wasn't William's usual style. "How much is he betting each time?" $10,000 each time, the subordinate said. "But Mr. Devonshire always bets exact numbers, high payout odds. Luckily, he booked the table so other customers couldn't place bets." That explained everything. William hadn't hidden in the main hall out of fear. He'd booked the table to force Smith's hand and take the money straight from the hotel if Smith refused to pay. Smith's heart ached for the billions he'd risked. He hesitated. If William could keep hitting, the hotel could lose everything. He sent a subordinate to bring a laptop and watched with a mixture of amusement and anxiety as William calmly tossed $10,000 on number 17 again and again, and each time the dice rolled 17. After an hour, William's table was piled with rectangular plastic chips. William yawned, checked his watch, and grew impatient. He placed all 60-odd plastic chips, each marked 1 million, on the number 6. If it hit, those chips would be worth $8.4 billion. Smith's heart jumped. This time the staff at the hotel hesitated to roll the dice. Smith sighed and told his head bodyguard, "Let him come up. It's time we had a proper talk." A few minutes later, William walked out of the elevator, clutching a check and looking furious. "Mr. Smith, do you not want to run a hotel anymore? Why didn't you roll that last round? If it had hit, it would have been $8.4 billion. What is this $60 million check you're handing me now?" "All right, William, calm down," Smith replied smoothly. "You've been betting 10 grand for an hour to force a negotiation. You won, and I'm an old man, so I swallowed my pride and invited you up. The roll hasn't happened yet. I don't believe it would have been a 6. "It was a 6. If you have the guts, roll it," William said, though his anger had cooled. No more bets wasn't just talk. If you hit, you had to pay. Now that Smith had softened, William sat comfortably. He'd come to the main hall to force Smith into talking, to gain leverage, and Smith knew it but had no real choice. The gambling industry was Las Vegas's backbone. If hotels refused to accept bets, they'd have to shut down. Smith poured William a glass of whiskey, dropped in a spherical ice cube, and said, "Don't worry, I'll give you the money we agreed on. Try this first." He handed William a glass. "This is Macallan Lalique Series, 62-year-old single malt. One bottle is $300,000. I've kept this bottle for myself and rarely drink it. Today you'll have it." William sniffed the whiskey and didn't drink. "When will you pay? I don't have time to waste." Smith chuckled. "I will pay. Aren't you interested in England Power? I want to pay you in shares. William scoffed. Are England Power shares something you can just hand over because you want to? That's our business, Smith said. If you want them, tell me. William studied Smith. These people had deep networks. Acquiring England Power wouldn't be just money, it would involve government influence. With the right allies, a takeover that would be impossible alone might be feasible. How many shares are you talking about? Including the 16% we already own, I guarantee to secure over 17% more for you. That would put you above 33 cents, enough to effectively control England Power. William laughed. A 33% stake is only worth $1.7 billion. Do you think I'm stupid, Mr. Smith? How about giving you an entire Aston Martin? Smith countered. That company is probably worth around $500 million. And even if you tried to acquire it yourself, you'd pay commissions to brokers and have to deal with the British government. I don't believe they'd give a century-old company to someone under 20 without some backroom work. The rest would be our PR fee. I guarantee the shares will be in your name within a week. A week? William repeated the word like a test. If Smith could arrange that in a week, it meant Smith and his people already had significant holdings or inside control. Otherwise, a week wouldn't be enough to buy that much without spiking the stock price. William considered his options. He could take $3 billion in cash and spend years building a stake. Stock prices fluctuate. Or he could accept Smith's help and get control quickly. 40% and all Aston Martin's assets, plus all shares of Chelsea. If not, I want cash. England Power isn't essential. I'm investing in infrastructure to boost Devonshire influence in Britain. There are other utilities, water, gas pipelines. $3 billion could buy any one of them. That's my final bottom line. Smith thought a moment, then agreed. He wasn't sure he could take William on. In truth, he feared William might retaliate and kill him. For his own safety, Smith grit his teeth and nodded. A huge prize slipped from his grasp, and he didn't like it, but the lawyers would sort the details. They shook hands with strained smiles, and William rose to leave, still cautious around the old man. Chapter 200. Old Smith softens. After confirming Smith's money, William handed the remaining work to his private lawyer, Anthony. He lingered in Las Vegas one day while Anthony's team finished handling Stark Group shares in New York, then flew to New York on a private jet. He had to deal with Bylena Island. The church had bought in, and William had promised to help resolve the island matter. He also held a personal grudge against Jet Floby of Albania. Getting rid of that fake general had become an obsession. Whenever William imagined Jet Floby with thousands of mercenaries, he worried Floby might someday remember that William had killed dozens of his men and come for revenge, or worse, go to Oxford and find William's mother. Eliminating a boss who was constantly protected by hundreds of men wouldn't be easy. But before confronting Jet Floby, William didn't forget to collect from Stark. Stepping off the plane, he saw Stark's portly bodyguard Happy waiting beside a line of Mercedes. "Good afternoon, Mr. Devonshire," Happy said. "I'm here on Mr. Stark's orders to pick you up and take you to the Stark Industrial Complex. Mr. Stark is already waiting." Chapter 139. Shaking Happy's hand, William joked, "Thanks. Are my Stark shares ready?" Happy shook his head, smiling. "I think they are. You can transfer them anytime." "Great, let's go then." Happy opened the car door for him, climbed into the passenger seat, and called the convoy over the walkie-talkie. After a half-hour drive, they arrived at Stark Industries Research Park in the northern suburbs. They passed 3 security checkpoints and pulled up in front of a sleek, futuristic laboratory. As William stepped out, he saw Tony Stark standing with Obadiah Stane, bald, bearded, and smiling. Obadiah came forward and gripped William's hand warmly. "Welcome to Stark Industrial Park, Mr. Devonhill. I'm Obadiah Stane, a director at Stark Industries." William returned the smile. He had seen the man who would later become Ironmonger, and for a moment his expression grew knowing. "Thank you, Mr. Stane. I'm William Devonhill. Pleasure to meet you." Tony lingered behind them, watching. William nudged him. "Hey, aren't you going to greet an old friend? How have your earnings been the past couple of days?" "Earnings?" Obadiah looked between them, puzzled. "Are you two hiding something from an old man?" Tony gave William a quick, discreet wink. William hadn't mentioned the stock plays to Stane, and stepped forward with a laugh. Nothing major, Stain. William and I have different opinions about a new media player. How he's here about that. You go on with your work. I'll entertain him. Obadiah read the message and rubbed his bald head. All right, I'll leave the technical stuff to you geniuses. I'll handle logistics and company matters. And welcome to Stark Industries, Mr. Devlin Hill. It's an honor to have you invest with us. I'm sure you won't regret it. Thank you, Mr. Stain. Tony waved off the clearly disappointed Stain and led William into the building. Inside, the famous arc reactor glowed at the center of the lab. William stopped, staring. The arc reactor's data had been running through his head for days, and seeing it in person made him curious. Stark, he asked, can that arc reactor power the whole industrial park? Tony beamed at the attention. Of course, it supplies all the power for the park. Interested? William nodded. He'd bought England Electric because the arc reactor had occurred to him. If he could build one in England, the company's stock would shoot up. What he still didn't know was the current cost of electricity produced by the arc reactor, and that was one reason he'd come here. Could it be used for civilian power now? What's the electricity cost? An engineer nearby glanced to Tony for permission, then answered, Mr. Devlin Hill, it can be used for civilian supply. It's about 15% cheaper than conventional electricity. 15%? Then why isn't it used commercially? Tony laughed. All right, I'll tell you, though you probably won't understand. He shrugged, then added, You never know. Maybe you'll surprise me someday. William's eyes flashed. Building an arc reactor wasn't beyond his capability. The real problem was patents. Without Stark Industries' authorization, he couldn't commercialize it without risking crippling litigation, unless the British government backed him completely. He wasn't sure England would throw national credit behind such a technology. Tony led him up to his office, poured him a glass of whiskey, an unusual courtesy, and handed over a report. These are our earnings from the last few days. Beautiful People Group is still small scale. The leverage position, 10 times on 6 billion, almost didn't fully execute, but it dropped 34% over 3 trading days. After fees, we each netted about $7.2 billion. Are you sure you want cash and not Beautiful People's debt equity? Those shares could rise 50% or even double in the not-too-distant future. William shook his head. He knew the shares would likely climb, but he didn't want to be tied to Las Vegas. The gambling business had a bad reputation, and he wasn't willing to risk his own name for a larger payout. Old Smith and Tony Stark didn't care about reputations. One a casino magnate, the other an arms dealer. But with the Secret Service and military elements involved, and possibly other powers behind the scenes, the acquisition by Caesar's Palace might not be smooth. With so much uncertainty, William preferred to keep the money where he could control it. Stark, he said, you should be careful about who your opponents are. You might learn something useful about them. Tony's expression shifted. William was the sort of man who wouldn't forgo that payout without a reason. The reminder softened Tony's demeanor. Thanks. I'll look into it. They talked for another half hour. After William's $7.2 billion was transferred into his account in Switzerland, he stood to leave. Out of respect for the funds, Tony personally escorted him downstairs. Happy drove William back to his townhouse on the Upper East Side. That evening, William rode his new heavy motorcycle to Old Two's bar. Inside, Barney and his 6 men sat at the bar, and Thor, the owner, stood behind the counter as bartender. As William entered, everyone raised their glasses. This Las Vegas job had been the easiest work any of them had done in years, and the pay had been generous. After a few rounds, William pulled Barney to a window booth. Have you met with Church? Yes, boss. Barney frowned. Do we really have to go to Valena Island? When we told Trench about it, he refused outright. From what I know of him, this job could be extremely dangerous. I know. William's voice was cool, immovable. I owe Church a favor. The flower business on Valena Island involves Jean Villain of Albania. You know about my history with Jean. I've wanted him taken out for a long time. I don't have a choice. Your commission is $10 million. Barney heard the steel in William's tone and nodded. All right, I'll scout the island with Christmas first. There's one of Church's men there. I'll meet up with him and establish contact. William shook his head. He didn't want Barney or Christmas going in first. The island situation was roughly known to him. There was no reason to expose them to unnecessary risk. Killing Monroe wouldn't be difficult for William. His concern was Jean Valaine's right-hand men. Capturing one would reveal Jean's whereabouts. He didn't want Barney to tip off or complicate matters. "No need," William said. "I've got the situation figured out. Have you prepared the things I asked for?" Barney led William to the warehouse behind the bar, a 300-square-meter space packed with gear and crates. He opened containers and used a forklift to bring out semi-finished parts and materials. William scanned instructions and began debugging equipment. Barney watched nervously. It looked like William had never used this gear before. After 2 hours of fine-tuning, William began assembling the pieces. An hour later, he held up a helmet that looked like it belonged to the future. He tossed it to Barney. "Try it on." Barney stared at the fully enclosed helmet, then steadied himself and put it on. William's voice came through a built-in earpiece. "This helmet's made from a double-layer nano-titanium alloy with a Kevlar layer in between. It's only 11 kilograms and can withstand close-range AK fire. There's an integrated comm system and a miniature ventilation unit for cooling, defogging, and air circulation. The 4 lenses on the front give a 180 field of view with infrared and night vision, anti-flash protection, and the ability to share video feeds with teammates." After a brief word, William ignored the overexcited Barney and kept assembling the armor and combat suit. The new combat suit was an upgraded version of the bulletproof vest technology he'd obtained from Winston. The close-fitting underlayer alone was already capable of stopping handgun rounds. With an outer layer of nano-titanium alloy plates and full-length protective boots, William estimated even a 12-gauge slug at close range wouldn't penetrate it. When Barney finally put on the full set, armor, helmet, and a modified HK-416 slung in his hands, he looked like a futuristic special ops soldier. Reminiscent of Snake Eyes, but with 4 extra lenses on the helmet and a more sculpted chest plate. Barney jumped, sprinted a few paces, crawled, and rolled. Movement wasn't impeded. He took off the helmet and grinned. "No problem with mobility. It's a little heavy, but the added weight might affect how much ammo we can carry." William laughed. "There's no avoiding that. Time's short. This is just the Devonshire Mark I. The whole set only weighs 12 kilograms. Getting this level of protection now is already a win. Future iterations will come later. My goal is a close-fitting exoskeleton, special batteries on the back to offload 60% of the user's weight, jets in the soles for huge jumps and sprint speeds near 100 kilometers per hour, underwater breathing and propulsion, and modular auto-aim weapon hookups. But with this suit, you're safe from most small arms. Unless it's a large-caliber machine gun or an anti-material rifle, ordinary rifles aren't going to threaten you." He produced a tiny rotorcraft no longer than a finger. "And this is the Black Edge drone. It's a silent recon unit. You won't hear it even 10 meters away. 12-kilometer range, and its video feed can be displayed directly on your helmet. The controller can bind to the left arm of the armor." William attached the controller to Barney's left forearm and taught him the controls. In minutes, Barney had the drone buzzing silently around the warehouse while wearing his helmet. William then had him fly it out to test the full range. After half an hour of testing and verifying the data, the Black Edge was fully functional. Barney piloted it back in, and, helmet still on and HK-416 in hand, walked over to the workbench where William was typing furiously. The rest of the expendables were green with envy when they saw Barney's kit. The next day, they spent it putting the equipment through every test they could think of. The outer armor layer held out for well over 100 rounds before showing a breach. The inner suit withstood about 100 handgun hits. The helmet, with its multiple functions and reinforced structure, even stood up to AK fire. Satisfied with the Devonshire Mark I's ballistic performance, William spent the afternoon assembling 7 complete sets. On the 3rd day, intelligence from the church confirmed that Edward, one of Jean-Pierre Frobe's lieutenants, was on Bylena Island. At 1900 hours, William and 6 others, fully kitted with armor, weapons, and ammunition, boarded the Expendables plane. The pilot was the retired Toll. Their plan was a direct parachute insertion onto Bylena to capture Edward alive and then neutralize other targets as needed. Before takeoff, Barney and the other 5 thoroughly checked their gear. William loaded the cargo bay and his own storage compartments with remote detonation charges and extra ammunition. With everything in order, they climbed aboard and took off. The veterans kept quiet on the flight, resting and checking their weapons. 4 hours later, Toll's voice crackled through the cabin speaker. "Wake up, everyone. 15 minutes to Bilena Island. Repeat, 15 minutes. Over." They went through final checks, put on helmets, and synced communications. William opened his helmet's comms. "Connect synchronized signal. Test comms. Normal. Normal." 6 voices answered. "Activate synchronized video feed." The display in the upper left corner of William's visor flickered as live perspectives from Barney and the others popped up. "Synchronized video. Normal," the team confirmed. William tapped a few more controls. A satellite map and a photograph of the target's compound appeared on each helmet. "This is the target location. Primary objective, capture Jean-Pierre Frobes's subordinate Edward alive." "Understood," came the replies. 3 minutes to jump," Toll announced. "Time to move," William said. He took his place at the plane's tail and shouted, "Go!" He leapt into the night, then Barney and the others launched one after another. The drop exhilarated William. After a few maneuvers to satisfy the thrill of skydiving, he steered toward Edward's camp as indicated in his HUD. His pack was heavy with weapons and ammo, so he deployed his parachute at 700 meters to avoid injuring his legs on landing. He steered for a safe touchdown, quickly packed the chute into a bundle, and crouched, rifle ready. He switched on night vision and infrared on his visor and surveyed the area. No movement. He linked his vision to the rest of the team. Barney and the others had landed safely and were organizing gear. They slipped in toward the camp from the southeast, silent as ghosts. William outlined the plan in a whisper. "Barney and I will do standoff clearing with bows and arrows. Christmas, Gunner, and Yin Yang will infiltrate and clear the tents. Caesar and Toll will take the high ground on the left and snipe any reinforcements. Understood?" "No problem," Gunner replied, licking the blade of his hunting knife. "Time to see who's the best knife man." "Stop bragging," William said. "Prove it with actions. Keep it quiet. Silenced weapons only. Any questions?" "Nope, I'm ready," Gunnar said. Christmas and Yin Yang exchanged a look, drew knives from their belts, and toggled night vision and IR. Gunnar, Christmas, and Yin Yang melted toward the tents. William knocked a few arrows and fitted one to his bow. From the observation post, he had a clear view of 2 sentries in a watchtower. Silent as a shadow, he drew and released. 2 soft thumps, 2 bodies toppled without a sound, arrows through foreheads. With the lookouts down, he descended and followed the infiltrators into the camp. Climbing the watchtower, William watched via his helmet's infrared scope as Gunnar, Christmas, and Yin Yang slipped into tent after tent. Their knives took care of sleeping mercenaries without raising an alarm. With William and Barney picking off a few more targets from the perimeter, the small camp was cleared in short order. Only 1 tent remained occupied, the central one where Edward slept. Gunnar crept in first, and 10 seconds later signaled clear. William sheathed his bow, climbed down, and approached the central tent. His mental sweep told him Edward was in a deep sleep. He hadn't even noticed Gunnar at his side. Christmas and Yin Yang joined them. William nudged Edward with his boot, and the man was unceremoniously kicked out of his cot. Dazed, Edward sat up, head clouded. 4 heavily armed men in black armor and helmets stared back at him. He tried to scramble, but Gunnar's knife settled at his throat, just enough to draw a sliver of blood and freeze him. The knife at his neck, Edward's face drained of color. Gunnar sniffed and made a face. "Boss, he smells strongly of alcohol. Looks like he's drunk." No wonder he had been sleeping so soundly. William nodded at Christmas, who produced a syringe and injected a tranquilizer into Edward's neck. 10 seconds later, Gunnar, who'd lost a bet, apparently hoisted the limp man onto his shoulder and carried him out of the tent toward the rendezvous point by the shore, where Toll was waiting in a small boat. Gunnar would shuttle Edward out and, if needed, act as machine gunner for the extraction. With Gunnar gone, William and the remaining 5 swept the camp for weapons. Their night drop had required traveling light. They needed heavier firepower. Luck favored them. Caesar found 2 PK general-purpose machine guns. Relief spread through the team. With the 2 PKs and as much ammo and belt drums as they could scavenge, the 6 mounted the guns on a military truck they found abandoned nearby. With night vision goggles down and engine noises muffled, they rolled out into the dark toward the castle where the island's leader lived, ready to press the advantage.